Let's go ahead and call the Senate to order. Sergeant at Arms will please secure the chamber doors. Members, please take your seats. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Mr. President.
All right, Senators, we are very pleased to have our very own Senator from the 17th District who will be providing us for the invocation this afternoon. Please rise for the invocation.
Thank you, Mr. President. Colleagues, staff, constituents, and friends, we are exhausted. Our nerves are frayed, and we are all working frantically to try to get to Monday's midnight deadline. We are grieving the losses at Key Bridge and working to renovate, restore, reinvigorate the economy as a result. Whatever God you do or do not pray to, may he or she help us to act with kindness and in collaboration with our fellow members of the Senate, regardless of our differences. Let's pray that our higher power grants us the patience and wisdom to do what's in the best interest of all Marylanders. And let us say, Amen.
Well done, thank you.
Mr. President.
Love it. All right, recognizing the Chair of Education, Energy, and the
Thank you,
Environment.
Mr. President. If the Senate would take the steps necessary to journalize the remarks from the Senator from the 17th Legislative District.
Absolutely, without objection, we most certainly will, and thank the Senator for that very heartfelt and on point, on fleek, can we say on fleek invocation? Is that a possibility? There we go, Rochelle got it. All right, very good. Wonderful. It was really great. It was it was like hit the moment. All right. Has everyone recorded their presence? If so, the clerk will take the call. All right. With 40 members in the chamber and a quorum being present, the Senate of Maryland is now again in session on this Saturday. I don't know how many folks have seen Office Space. I kept in my head last night having the, walking in and we're going to have to work on Saturday, okay, So that's where we are. I think appreciate you all being here and staying dedicated. We got a fair amount of work to do, and we will get through it as expeditiously as we can. Good news is that every minute that we spend here today makes Monday a little bit better. So just keep that in mind. So even if it doesn't feel great. Let's see, introductions. Any introductions or guests? Chair recognizes Senator from District 6.
Mr. President, I don't have an introduction, but I'd like to say something just briefly.
Very briefly, yes, please.
Thank you, Mr. President. Everybody, just want to let you know, I want to thank the President of the Senate for the opportunity to represent the Senate of Maryland and meeting and have an opportunity to be at the Key Bridge and to be able to talk to Secretary Buttigieg and our federal partners that are working together and there with the President of the United States. It was an honor to be there. They spoke well, and they want to do exactly what they said they want to do. They want to help in every way to finance and to get this bridge back up and to clear everything out. But I want to tell you, Mr. President, I had the opportunity to meet with the family and the families, and also the families were able to meet with the President. And my heart goes out to them, and I just want to let you know that we are going to do all that we can for these families, but also for our workers. So again, Mr. President, I want to thank you for the opportunity to represent the Senate of Maryland. I want to let you know it was my honor, and more than anything, I know we're doing the right thing for the people. Thank you, Mr. President.
Most certainly. Thank you, Senator, and thank you for representing us so well at the event yesterday, and so glad that you could be there. Thank you. Thank you. All right, any other? Yes, Chair recognizes Senator from the 25th District.
Thank you, Mr. President. I have the honor and privilege today to have two of my favorite constituents, little Nicholas Charles III and my daughter, Bren Charles. if you can congratulate him, he just received his black belt.
Oh.
And then my daughter, she just received her brown belt. So this is my security detail for the day. Now I got to let them go so they can go to practice. So thank you, Mr.
Oh,
President.
that's awesome. Very good. Very good. That's awesome. Congratulations on those black and brown belts. That's no surprise. Some real leaders right there. Well done. Welcome. All right. Any additional introductions today? Any other introductions? Yes, recognize the senator from the 17th.
Thank you, Mr. President. Above your head, I've got some 4 very special guests, actually. So my Chief of Staff, Justin Butler, who I stole from the Maryland Democratic Party, Bree Reed, who I met while speaking at a University of Maryland College Park class, have just been working hard and doing wonderful things in my office. And I'm delighted to have 2 constituents and friends, Neil and Linda Burka from Gaithersburg, are down to watch us in action and enjoy Annapolis. Please help me in welcoming all 4 of them. Thank you.
Excellent. Welcome. 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 Senator from District 1.
Thank you, Mr. President. Colleagues, I'm joined on the floor today with our intern, Delia Ramirez, her sister, and her fiance. Would you give them a round of applause?
Welcome.
She's lasted 89 days with me so far.
All right.
That's
Very
a
good. Very
big
good. No small
accomplishment.
task, right? You know?
And that's the max. So.
Very good. Wonderful. All right. Any further introductions before we jump into the work or notes? If not, so we consider the reading of the journal from the prior legislative day. Let's start with message from the House, number 7. Clerk will read the bills.
Senate Bill 6, Senator Guile, property tax credit for dwelling.
Majority Leader moves to be considered the reading of the bills. We've got message number 38 from the House. Clerk will read the message.
House Bill 770, Delegate Schmidt, operating a vessel while under the influence of alcohol enforcement, Nix law rules.
Majority Leader moves to be considered the reading of the bills. They'll be referred to the Rules Committee. We've got another one.
House
Clerk.
Bill 188, Delegate Cardin, public safety, police
Majority Leader moves to be
accountability.
considered the reading of the bills. They will be referred to the Rules Committee. Let's go ahead and jump with second readers to Education, Energy, and the Environment. Start with report number 66. These are Senate bills.
Senate Bill 445, Senator Zucker, Maryland Department of Health, 211 Maryland, oversight, favorable with 1 amendment.
Recognizing Vice Chair of the Committee.
Thank you, Mr. President. As you all know, 211 helps our constituents get access to to human services, if they need food, if they need lodging. And so this really is a cleanup bill that adds 2 members of 211 specialists to the board for oversight. That's the primary thing that it does, as I'm frantically pulling for the folder to explain. So there are no amendments on this, so I move for the favorable adoption.
I think that might be the House version.
That is the House version. Thank you. That's the first one I pulled up. The Senate bill conforms the Senate version to the House. We passed them both, and it just clarifies again that we're going to add 2 211 specialists to the Oversight Board. So move adoption of the committee amendment and the favorable committee report.
All right, floor leader
Thank you,
moves to the
Mr.
adoption of the one committee amendment, the favorable committee report. On the amendment, any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the one committee amendment is adopted. Question now is on the amended report. Any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the amended report is adopted. Are there any further amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, Senate Bill 445 is ordered printed for third reading. Clerk, read the next bill.
Senate Bill 1090, Senator Waldstreicher, Maryland Center for School Safety, statewide secure schools emergency response program, established, favorable with 2 amendments.
Recognizing Vice Chair of the Committee.
Thank you, Mr. President. This sets up a grant program within the Maryland Center for School Safety. And again, I talked about this yesterday, just making sure that, that our schools, our 911 centers, and other key emergency leaders are interconnected. There are 2 amendments. The first is technical, and the second The second strikes the provisions establishing the statewide Secure Schools Emergency Response Program in the Maryland Center for School Safety and the requirement that the program must procure and implement an emergency communication platform in every public school through which all school faculty and staff are able to alert a public safety answering point, which is a 911 center, to report a life-threatening emergency situation. So move the adoption of the 2 committee amendments and the favorable committee report.
All right, the senator moves to the adoption of the 2 committee amendments and the favorable committee report. On the amendments, any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the 2 committee amendments are adopted. Question now is on the amended report. Any discussion? Any objection? Without objection, the amended report is adopted. Are there any further amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, Senate Bill 1090 is hereby ordered printed for third reading. Clerk, read the next bill.
Senate Bill 1174, Senator McCray, Baltimore Regional Water Authority Governance Work Group established, favorable with 1 amendment.
Recognize Senator from the 43rd.
Thank you, Mr. President. This bill extends an existing task force to explore the creation of a regional water authority. There is 1 technical committee amendment. I ask for the adoption of the committee amendment and a favorable committee report.
All right, the senator moves to the adoption of the 1 committee amendment and the favorable committee report. On the amendment, any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the 1 committee amendment is adopted. Question now is on the amended report. Any discussion? Any objection? Without objection, the amended report is adopted. Are there any further amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, Senate Bill 1174 is hereby ordered printed for third reading. Clerk, read the next bill.
Senate Bill 1183, Senator Carter, Natural Resources, Establishment of Gwynn Falls State Park, favorable with 2 amendments.
Recognizing the senator from the 43rd.
Thank you, Mr. President. This bill codifies and explores a discussion that's been going on between the state and Baltimore City in terms of looking at connecting more of our state natural resources. This bill requires DNR to establish a park partnership with the Baltimore City Department of Recreation, and that it will seek to provide a way for visitors to connect and understand, and also to work together to get resources, perhaps at the federal level. There are 2 committee amendments. 1 amendment removes the requirement that they establish the state park. Instead, we'll be exploring that issue. We're going to convene a work group, and then we're going to develop a list of priorities and establish stakeholders. I move for the adoption of the 2 committee amendments and the favorable committee report.
All right, floor leader moves to the adoption of the 2 committee amendments and the favorable committee report. On the amendments, any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the 2 committee amendments are adopted. Question now is on the amended report. Any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the amended report is adopted. Are there any further amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, Senate Bill 1183 is hereby ordered printed for third reading. Let's go to budget and tax. Actually, we should have the House bill for those, shouldn't we? We may have gotten out of sorts a little bit, but we'll go to budget and tax for now. Report number 35. Clerk will read the first bill.
House Bill 66, Delegate Shakoudian, Property Tax Credits, Public School Employees, Health and Safety Improvements, and Property Used for Local Housing Programs, favorable.
Do we have this one? Let's see, maybe we move to special order these 2 bills until the chair has returned. Yeah, okay. Any objections? Majority Leader moves to special order the bills in this calendar for 30 minutes. Without objection, so ordered. All right. Oh, it's okay. Well, all right, let's take up layover calendar number 57. 57. Clerk will read the bill. Clerk will read the bill.
House Bill 1117, Delegate Stewart, Landlord and Tenant Failure to Repair Serious and Dangerous Defects, Tenant Remedies, Tenant Safety Act of 2024. Question is on the adoption of the 2 committee amendments offered from the floor by Senator Waldstreicher.
All right, let's, if the maker of the amendment could remind us the substance of the amendments.
Thank you, Mr. President. There was a clarifying amendment that was misdrafted. We're going to withdraw that amendment and go with the original.
Okay, so the senator moves to withdraw the floor amendment. All right, the amendment having been withdrawn, the bill is now on second reading. Open to amendment? We're on third reading, okay. So House Bill 1117 is on third reading for final passage. If we could ring the bells, the clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote? Explain their vote?
Mr.
Oh, yes,
President?
Chair recognizes the Senator from District 1.
I would like to explain my vote, giving some people a little bit more time. So I just want to say that when this bill first came in, I was a no vote on it. But I think that through the administration and the good work that both sides of the House and the Senate and the respective committees did a good job to at least take care of the concerns that I had and really take into consideration the rural communities and where things are a little bit different and that one size does not fit all. So I'm proud to put up a green vote for this bill. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator. Any further senators wish to explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 29 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 1117, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. All right, let's go to, this is Education, Energy, and the Environment, report number 69. Clerk will read the bill.
House Bill 1441, Delegate Atterbury, Early Childhood Education, Publicly Funded Pre-Kindergarten Programs, Alterations, favorable with 2 amendments.
Recognizing the Senator from the 43rd District.
Thank you, Mr. Amendment. Thank you, Mr. President. There are 2 committee amendments. This bill makes numerous changes to the publicly funded pre-kindergarten programs. It expands the ability for staff to get certified. It establishes a very clear career ladder so we can continue to build this profession. It makes some changes in the proportion of pre-kindergarten slots provided by eligible private providers, and it establishes the requirements for the existing regions. It also, again, just gives a lot more flexibility for our private providers. There are 2 committee amendments. One amendment is technical. The second amendment alters the credential requirement. It strikes the extended funding mandates, which was very key, and it makes other technical corrections. I press or ask for the adoption of the 2 committee amendments and the favorable committee report.
All right, the floor leader moves for the adoption of the 2 committee amendments and the favorable committee report. On the amendments, any discussion? Any objections? Oh, yes, Chair recognizes the Senator from the 42nd District on the amendments.
Thank you, Mr. President. Could I ask the floor leader a question or two?
Senator may proceed.
Of course, I'm not on your committee and have not participated in the conversations about this bill, but I know that one of my counties, Carroll County in particular, is having a difficult time locating private providers of kindergarten services and is concerned that they're not going to be able to comply with the blueprint because they can't find the appropriate number of private providers. Right. Does this bill do anything to alleviate that problem?
Absolutely, it does. In particular, it was designed for that. We've had a lot of conversations over the interim. As you know, I'm chair of the Education Subcommittee in EEE, and so we understood that the way it was the blueprint was originally drafted, it didn't allow for a fair opportunity for private providers to develop the requirements that are needed. So this bill absolutely addresses that.
What does it do? Does it extend the time?
It creates a different, yes, so it creates a different pathway. We're going to show you. It establishes a pathway, it expands, it allows eligible private providers and other relevant agencies to develop a memorandum of understanding around those agreements so that they can accommodate any sort of adjustment they need to make. It also allows the local board of education to apply for funding around that. Yeah.
Okay. And with this bill and the whatever amendments that relate to this, did you find that the counties are in favor of the bill, or do they weigh in still opposing this and saying more change is needed?
Oh, I don't have that information for me.
Okay, so the counties, there was no testimony either pro or con on the part of the counties?
Oh,
County
on this,
systems?
I'm speaking to this version of the bill. At the moment, the bill is supported by MSDE, AIB, MSCA, MACO. So that's the county.
Okay.
So
Ma-
they are
MACO does
supporting
support
of
the bill?
that. Yes, and so is so is MABE, so the boards of education.
All right, thank you very much for your answers.
Thank you, Senator. All right. Question remains on the two committee amendments. Any discussion? Any objection to the committee amendments? Without objection, the two committee amendments are adopted. Question now is on the amended report. Any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the amended report is adopted. Are there any further amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, House Bill 1441 is hereby ordered passed for third reading. I found the one I was looking for. This is Tripoli, the cross files here. This is Report 65. Clerk will read the first bill.
House Bill 241, Chair Environment and Transportation Committee, Housing and Community Development, Just Community Designation, favorable.
Recognizing the senator from the 43rd.
Thank you, Mr. President. This is a departmental bill which is identical to Senate Bill 308 as it passed in the Senate, and it authorizes the governor on the recommendation of the Department of Housing and Community Development to establish and create what it calls just communities. It establishes, it also seeks some general findings. Oh, sorry, let me back up. It has to do with this designation will prioritize state funding to address past inequities in the distribution of community development funds. It also will receive, it takes effect July 1st. There are no committee amendments, and I move for the adoption of the favorable committee report.
All right, the senator moves for the adoption of the favorable committee report. On the report, any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the favorable committee report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, House Bill 241 is hereby ordered passed for third reading. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 242, Chair Economic Matters Committee, State Amusement Ride Safety Advisory Board, Sunset Repeal, favorable with two amendments.
Recognizing the senator from District 9.
Thank you, Mr. President. Colleagues, as we received this bill from the House, it repealed the termination of the State Amusement Ride Safety Board within the Maryland Department of Labor, thereby making the board permanent. In committee, we thought it was wise to amend it so that they had a 3-year extension and adding a report from the Joint Audit and Evaluation Committee. I move the adoption of the two committee amendments and the favorable committee report.
All right, senator moves for the adoption of the two committee amendments and the favorable committee report. On the amendments, any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the two committee amendments are adopted. Question now is on the amended report. Any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the amended report is adopted. Are there any further amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, House Bill 242 is hereby ordered passed for third reading. Clerk, read the next bill.
House Bill 353, Delegate Collison, Maryland Department of Health, 211 Maryland Oversight, favorable.
Recognizing the Vice Chair of the Committee.
Thank you, Mr. President. This is the cross-file to the 211 bill I just presented. It was perfect the way it came over to us, so I just move adoption of the favorable committee report.
Senator moves to the adoption of the favorable committee report. Any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the favorable committee report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, House Bill 353 is hereby ordered passed for third reading. Clerk, read the next bill.
House Bill 468, Delegate Love, Commission to Advance Lithium-Ion Battery Safety in Maryland, favorable with two amendments.
Recognizing the senator from the 35th District, but before he begins, did they win? Softball?
Ended up a last-minute cancellation because of the fields were too muddy.
Ah, well, okay, well, all right. At least you didn't miss it.
That's right.
Senator may proceed.
Sure. House Bill 468 establishes the Commission to Advance Lithium-Ion Battery Safety in Maryland. It will be staffed by the Office of the State Fire Marshal, and by December 1st, 2024, the Commission must submit an interim report on the progress and status of the Commission to the Legislative Policy Committee. There are two committee amendments. The First Amendment adds to the Commission's membership. Second Amendment modifies the responsibilities of the Commission related to fire prevention and utility applications and authorizes consultation with individuals and entities other than those on the Commission. I'd like to move the two committee amendments and ask for adoption of the favorable committee report.
All right, Senator moves for the adoption of the two committee amendments and the favorable committee report. On the amendments, any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the two committee amendments are adopted. Question now is on the amended report. Any discussion? Any objection? Without objection, the amended report is adopted. Are there any further amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, House Bill 468 is hereby ordered passed for third reading. Clerk, read the next bill.
House Bill 594, Dorchester County Delegation, legal advertisement or legal notice in Dorchester County, publication in newspaper or newspaper in general circulation. Digital newspaper is favorable.
Recognizing the Vice Chair of the Committee.
Thank you, Mr. President. Colleagues, our committee for many years now has struggled with balancing the desire of our local governments, our counties and municipalities, to reduce the overhead in public notifications and the need to make sure we have a vigorous and successful independent media. I commend the senator who represents Dorchester County in working with the Press Association and others to craft a really thoughtful middle ground between online and print media, and this does that. So I move there are no amendments, so I move the adoption of the favorable committee report.
All right, floor leader moves for the adoption of the favorable committee report. Any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the favorable committee report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, House Bill 594 is hereby ordered passed for third reading. Clerk, read the next bill.
House Bill 613, Delegate Boyce, Natural Resources, Recreational Catching of Oysters or Clams, requirements favorable with 2 amendments.
Recognizing the senator from the 38th.
Thank you, Mr. President. House Bill 613 establishes a recreational oyster license fee available only to residents required to harvest oysters in the tidal waters of the state. There is a $10 application fee, a portion of which is to be used to replenish public fishery oyster bars. There are 2 excellent committee amendments. The first requires the Department of the Natural Resources to issue complimentary or discounted recreational oyster licenses to prisoners of war, unemployable veterans, 100% service-connected disabled veterans, and blind people. The amendments also require the department to issue a license to Purple Heart recipients with a discounted fee. The amendments also authorize individuals who own or lease properties bordering tidal waters and their immediate family to catch oysters without a recreational oyster license, provided that that individual and family registers with the department and there is no fee for registering. The amendments are supported by the Maryland Department of Natural Resources, and we thank them for their assistance with them. I move the 2 committee amendments and a favorable committee report.
All right, the senator moves for the adoption of the 2 committee amendments and the favorable committee report. On the amendments, any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the 2 committee amendments are adopted. Question now is on the amended report. Any discussion? Yes, recognizing the senator from the 29th.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd like to speak on the bill.
On the report, yes.
Yes, I first wanted to compliment the committee and the department for taking these amendments. We've seen these on a lot of different issues, whether we go fishing, whether we go crabbing. These exemptions all apply to that. The one thing that I hope the department looks at over the summer is the fact that you can't recreational oyster on Sundays, right? So you're not allowed to do that on Sundays. And when you look at the department's stance when they're talking about people recreating, we see how much they are in favor of hunting on Sundays. They want people to be out involving and doing things on Sunday. And the issue is when you recreationally oyster, I'm not sure that many people in here have done it, but you either go to a bar and you use shaft tongs, or you use nippers, where you look down in the water and you individually pick an oyster off the bottom. And the fact is, you're only allowed to recreationally oyster in the morning on Saturday, right? So now all of a sudden, we are causing people a fee, and the only time that they're able to do this, to take the oysters out of the water recreationally, would be on a Saturday. So if you lived on the water and you had a dock in the bay and you had oysters on the side of your dock, and somebody came over to watch a football game and you wanted to go out there and get some oysters so you could shuck some oysters, right? You could not legally do that with this bill. And my point for standing is hopefully the department will recognize that and they will address this through regulation so we don't have to address it next year in this body. And I would be interested in an amendment right now, but I don't want to hold up this legislation because we don't know how many people are participating in the recreationally oystering. So I do think it's a good bill moving forward, and thank you for your time.
All right. The senator moves for, or excuse me, thank you, Senator, on the amended report. Any discussion? Any further discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the amended report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, House Bill 613 is hereby ordered passed for third reading. Clerk, read the next bill.
House Bill 1024, Prince George's and Montgomery County Delegation, Washington Suburban Sanitary Commission Connection Pipe Emergency Replacement Loan Program, expansion, favorable.
All right, recognizing the senator from the 23rd is the floor leader.
Thank you, colleagues. This joint sponsored bill by Prince George's County and Montgomery County expands the Washington Suburban Sanitary Commission Connection Pipe Emergency Replacement Loan Program to include sewer pipes and diagnostic actions as specified. The bill increases from $5,000 to $10,000, the maximum loan that a customer is eligible to receive under the program. The bill increases from $1 million to $2 million, the maximum total loans that WSSC may provide or have outstanding at any one time. There are no committee amendments. I move the adoption of the favorable committee report.
All right, the senator moves for the adoption of the favorable committee report. Any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the favorable committee report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, House Bill 1024 is hereby ordered passed for third reading. Clerk, read the next bill.
House Bill 1358, Delegate Ruff, Natural Resources, Gwynn Falls State Park, Focus Group Advisory Committee, and Report, favorable.
Recognizing the senator from the 43rd.
Thank you, Mr. President. This is the House cross-file of the on the same topic. There are no committee amendments. I ask for the adoption of a favorable committee report.
All right, senator moves for the adoption of the favorable committee report. Any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the favorable committee report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, House Bill 1358 is hereby ordered passed for third reading. Clerk, read the next bill.
House Bill 1393, Delegate Crosby, Electric Systems Planning, Scope and Funding, favorable with one amendment.
Recognizing the chair of the committee.
Thank you, Mr. President. House Bill 1393 does several important things. Number one, obviously we're trying to strive to reach our clean energy goals, modernize our grid, and so one of the things that's emerged over the last few years, Mr. President, is we haven't necessarily done a great job as a state getting all the Inflation Reduction Act money from the feds that we could get. There were $370 billion appropriated in the 2022 IRA legislation from Congress over the next 10 years. And so I think it's important, this bill, number one, and most importantly, sends a strong message to get those federal dollars by requiring the Maryland Energy Administration to identify funding sources that may be available to electric companies under the Inflation Reduction Act. Companies then need to report at least quarterly to the Maryland Energy Administration and the Public Service Commission what they have done in that regard, and to require through regulation that that these companies make the best effort to, in fact, get that federal money. Secondly, by December 1st, 2024, and each December 1st thereafter, so that we can exercise more oversight over what's happening in on clean energy projects around our state. It modifies the existing reporting requirements that the PSC must submit to include the current status of projects designed to promote several of the policy goals this General Assembly has laid out. Thirdly, it broadens the scope of some of the electric system planning that's done at the Public Service Commission. It's not just about distribution, it's about distribution and transmission. And then finally, Mr. President, it requires that electric companies invest in demand-side methods to improve reliability and efficiency, but we have to make sure we do that in a cost-effective manner, and I believe we may have an amendment from the committee, from the Senate President Pro Tem, that will tighten that component part even more. So there was one amendment, Mr. President. The amendment delays from July 1st, 2025 to December 31st, 2025, the date by which the Public Service Commission is required to adopt regulations related to some of what I just enumerated. So, Mr. President, I would move the adoption of favorable committee in that one amendment, understanding that we do have another amendment I believe the senator from the 47th will be offering.
Excellent. All right. The senators move for the adoption of the one committee amendment and the favorable committee report. On the amendment, any discussion? Any objection? Without objection, the one committee amendment is adopted. Question now is on the amended report. Any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the amended report is adopted. Recognizing the President Pro Tem who has an amendment, the pages will collect. And welcome back on the Saturday pages. Thank you for joining us on this wonderful Saturday as you deliver the amendment. Senator may explain it.
Oh, thank you, Mr. President. As the chair of our committee and floor leader mentioned, we just want to make sure that we do not impede what is already a prudency review that the PSC has. And so we just wanted to put this clarifying language in here that includes cost effectiveness information to ensure that we do not have ratepayer impact, and hopefully this will be taken as a friendly amendment.
All right, Senator moves the amendment. Let's hear from the chair.
It's a very friendly amendment, Mr. President.
Very friendly, not just friendly, very friendly. Do anyone from the floor feel differently? If not, the amendment is adopted. All right, any further amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, House Bill 1393 is hereby ordered passed for third reading. All right, let's keep with education, energy, and the environment. Calendar number 70. Clerk will read the first bill. Just navigating a slight technical glitch. All right, we are, for some reason it is slightly stuck. Let's go to 36. This is budget and tax report number, wait, now we don't have the, can we grab the chair of the committee for budget and tax? Report number 36. Clerk will read the first bill.
House Bill 902, Delegate Grist, pre-kindergarten Ulysses Curry Head Start Program, eligibility for state funds, favorable.
Recognizing the Senator from Prince George's.
Thank you, Mr. President. House Bill 902 establishes that a provider in the Ulysses Curry Head Start program is eligible to receive full state funds under the full-day pre-kindergarten program, even if the program receives federal funds. There are no amendments. Move the adoption of the favorable committee report.
All right, the Senator moves for the adoption of the favorable committee report. Any discussion? Any objection? Without objection, the favorable committee report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, House Bill 902 is hereby ordered passed for third reading. Clerk, read the next bill.
House Bill 1516, Chair Ways and Means, Real Property Assessments, Notice of Change in Value or Classification, Time Period, favorable.
Recognizing the chair of the committee.
Thank you, Mr. President. House Bill 1516 is an emergency bill that extends the statutory deadline for fiscal 2025 by which the State Department of Assessments and Taxations must send out reassessment notices to property owners to May 1st, 2024. The bill then sunsets December 31st, 2024. There are no amendments, and it was passed unanimously. Just in a little context, this was the You may recall at the beginning of session, we learned there was an unfortunate error on the behalf of one of the contractors that was hired by the Department of Assessment and Taxation. And what this does is extends the deadline, and it's already, the mailings have already occurred at this point, and everyone who receives the mailing will have the full amount of time to still appeal their assessment, should they feel the need to appeal their assessment, and all of that would transpire, all that action would transpire before they would actually have to pay their tax bill coming up in July. So I would move approval of the committee report.
All right, floor leader moves to the adoption of the favorable committee report. Any discussion? Any objection? Without objection, the favorable committee report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, House Bill 1516 is hereby ordered passed for third reading. Clerk, read the next bill.
House Bill 1525, Chair Appropriations, Maryland Stadium Authority, Camden Yards Football Sports Facility Special Funds established, favorable.
Recognizing the chair of the committee.
Thank you, Mr. President. This bill establishes two special non-lapsing funds in the Maryland Stadium Authority to pay for expenses related to capital improvements and repairs and emergency repairs at the Camden Yards Football Sports Facility. The bill then capitalized each fund with a $5 million transfer of existing bond funds. There are no amendments, so there's no new money involved in this. This is just setting up these funds that were already determined to be needed as we were implementing the bond funding programs around the stadium.
All right. Senator moves to the adoption of the favorable committee report. Any discussion? Any objection? Without objection, the favorable committee report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, House Bill 1525 is hereby ordered passed for third reading.
No. He sent it, but it's just not in
It's just not in there. Okay, that's fine. Let's go to oh, yes.
Just a question, I apologize.
Yes,
Mr. President. Did we get to report number 35? I think we had it up on the screen at one point. It looks like it's checked off, but I
think we had it special ordered. We special ordered it to.
I see. Okay.
So we'll bring it back up.
Okay. Thank you.
I think we did 30 minutes. All right. Let's go to report number 78 out of finance.
Finance report number 78, consent calendar number 26.
All right. Let's recognize the chair of finance.
Thank you, Mr. President. The House bills on this report have no amendments and are the same as the cross-filed Senate bills that unanimously passed the Senate. I move the bills in this report.
All right. The chair moves for the adoption of the favorable committee report for House bills on consent calendar number 26. Are there any bills that senators wish to take up separately? If not, are there any objection to the committee reports? Without objection, the favorable committee reports for House bills on consent calendar 26 are adopted, and the bills are ordered passed to third reading. Okay, let's just do this one finance one here. This is report number 79. Clerk will read the bill.
House Bill 573, Delegate Simmons, Citizens Committee for the Enhancement of Communities Surrounding BWI Thurgood Marshall Airport. Membership favorable.
Recognizing the chair of the committee.
Thank you, Mr. President. House Bill 573 increases the number of members on the Citizens Committee for the Enhancement of Communities Surrounding Baltimore Washington International Thurgood Marshall Airport from 11 members to 12. Instead of one member of the committee being recommended to the Secretary of Transportation for appointment by the delegates representing District 12, the bill requires one member of the committee to be recommended by the delegates representing District 12A and one member of the committee to be recommended representing District 12B. There are no amendments. I move the adoption of the favorable committee report.
All right. The chair moves that we adopt the favorable committee report. Any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the favorable committee report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, House Bill 573 is hereby ordered passed for third reading. Let's now go back to that number 70 out of Education, Energy, and the Environment. Clerk, read the first bill.
House Bill 971, Delegate Grossman, Washington County Interscholastic Athletics Student Eligibility Waiver and School Classification, favorable.
That's not it.
Oh dear, it just skipped ahead. No, it's okay, she's got it. Okay.
There it is.
There. House Bill 838, Prince George's Delegation, Prince George's County Family Child Care Home Expansion Grant Program Establishment, favorable.
Recognizing Senator from the 23rd.
Thank you, Mr. President. Colleagues, this delegation bill establishes the Prince George's County Family Child Care Home Expansion Grant Program in the county public school systems to increase the number of registered family child care providers, family child care homes, and large family child care homes in low-income communities in the county. There are no committee amendments. I move adoption of the favorable committee report.
All right, the floor moves to the adoption of the favorable committee report. Any discussion? Any objection? Without objection, the favorable committee report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, House Bill 838 is hereby ordered passed for third reading. Clerk, read the next bill.
House Bill 971, Delegate Grossman, Washington County Interscholastic Athletics Student Eligibility Waiver and School Classifications, favorable.
Recognizing the senator from the 38th District.
Thank you, Mr. President. House Bill 971 is a local bill. It authorizes the Washington County Board of Education to waive the eligibility requirement for high school interscholastic athletics that the student be enrolled at and attend a member school if the student attends a public school in the county that is not the student's own school, and the student does not have an interscholastics athletic program, and the student meets all the other the eligibility requirements established by the County Board of Education and the Maryland Public Secondary Schools Athletic Association, MPSSAA. There are no committee amendments, and I move for a favorable committee report.
All right, floor leader moves to the adoption of the favorable committee report. Any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the favorable committee report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, House Bill 971 is hereby ordered passed for third reading. Clerk, read the next bill.
House Bill 1492, Delegate Rogers, Education, Armed Services, Vocational Aptitude Battery, Student Information, favorable.
Recognizing the senator from the 23rd.
Thank you, Mr. President. Colleagues, this bill alters the requirement that each public school that administers the Armed Services Vocational Aptitude Battery select option 8 as the source reporting requirement to prohibit the general release of student information to military recruiters, and instead requires local school systems to notify students and their parents 2 weeks before administering the ASVAB, notifying them of this option. There are no committee amendments. I move adoption of the favorable committee report.
All right, senator moves to the adoption of the favorable committee report. Any discussion? Any objection? Without objection, the favorable committee report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, House Bill 1492 is hereby ordered passed for third reading. All right, let's go ahead and do the special order calendar number 83. 83. Clerk will read the bill.
House Bill 841, Delegate Ruth, Environment, Plastic Bottle Waste Reduction, Water Bottle Filling Stations, and Reporting. Question is on the adoption of the favorable report.
All right, question is on the favorable report. Recognize the minority leader on the bill.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Just wanted to thank the floor leader for being able to address the questions we met afterwards. Still not a big fan of the bill as far as dictating what has to happen with these water bottle filling stations, but certainly am now more knowledgeable about it and how the bill is intended to act, so I appreciate being able to talk with the floor leader about that. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you, Senator. All right, on the report, any further discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the favorable committee report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, House Bill 841 is hereby ordered passed for third reading. Let's do these not concurrence, even though the House is no longer here. Which bill number is that one? 182? 182. Clerk will read the bill.
Senate Bill 182, Senator Sidnor, Criminal Procedure, Facial Recognition Technology Requirements, Procedures, and Prohibitions.
All right, recognizing the chair of the committee on the House amendments.
Thank you, Mr. President. The House attached an amendment that had some technical complications. We didn't agree, so we did not concur. I pointed to the conference committee, so move not to concur.
All right, chair moves that we not concur with the House amendments. Any discussion, any objections? Without objection, the motion carries. Clerk will read the message.
By the Majority Leader, ladies and gentlemen of the Senate, the House of Delegates does not recede in the House amendments to the Senate bill and agrees to a conference committee to confer on the disagreeing votes of the two houses. The Senate has appointed Senator Sidnor, Chair, Senator Carter, Senator McKay. The House appoints Delegate Moon, Chair, Delegate Embry, Delegate Grammer. Said bills returned herewith by order Sylvia Siegert, Chief Clerk.
All right, message having been read is ordered journalized. So our conference committee is up and running. So we had actually already not concurred. This was just, we received the message back from the House that they have established a conference committee. So we have another one of those. This will be Senate Bill 271.
Senate Bill 271, Chair, Education, Energy, Environment Committee, Election Law Revisions. House will not recede. Agree to conference committee.
Clerk will read the message.
By the Majority Leader, ladies and gentlemen of the Senate, the House of Delegates does not recede in the House amendments to the Senate bill and agrees to a conference committee to confer on the disagreeing votes of the two houses. The Senate has appointed Senator Kagan, Chair, Senator Hester, Senator Simonaire. The House appoints Delegate Wilkins, Chair, Delegate Farr, Delegate Griffith. Said bills returned herewith by order Sylvia Siegert, Chief Clerk.
All right, message having been read is ordered journalized. Let's see, do we have... All right, let's do this. Let's do some of these concurrences. If we could do a quorum call.
Mr. President.
Has everyone recorded their presence? If so, the clerk. If we could ring the bells to Madam Secretary. Oh, yes, I recognize Senator yes. Well, actually, let's get the quorum call once we finish the quorum call. Has everyone recorded their presence? If so, the clerk will take the call. With 44 members in the chamber and a quorum being present, the Senate of Maryland remains in session, recognizing the senator from the 25th.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd like to be recorded in the green for House Bill 1117.
1117 in the green, if the pages could collect the form. Any objections? Without objections, so ordered. All right, let's go ahead, while we have these ones here, let's get through these third readers. Calendar number 91. Clerk will read the bill.
Senate Bill 1166, Senator Folden, Frederick County, Scenic Byways Signs.
Senate Bill 1166 is on third reading for final passage. Any discussion? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote, explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 44 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 1166, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Let's go to third reading calendar 64. These are amended House bills. Clerk will read the first bill.
House Bill 75, Delegate Ebersol, Higher Education Teacher Development and Retention Program Alterations.
House Bill 75 is on third reading for final passage. Any discussion? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote, explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 44 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 75, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 119, Chair, Health and Government Operations, Public Health, Giving Infants a Future Without Transmission, GIFT Act.
House Bill 119 is on third reading for final passage. Any discussion? If not, the clerk. Oh, yes, recognize the senator from the 28th District.
Yeah, Mr. President, I have an amendment.
Senator has an amendment. Pages will collect and distribute the senator's amendment. Senator may explain the amendment.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. President. This bill offers some protection to newborn, requiring their moms to be tested under consent. And this amendment will give them further assurance that their privacy will be protected by adjusting the fines for disclosure of their personal information. So, Mr. President, I move the amendment.
All right, Senator moves the amendment. Let's hear from the chair of the committee.
Thank you, Mr. President. The senator has worked with the Health Department, and they agree with the amendment, so we'll take it as a friendly amendment.
All right. Committee sees it as a friendly amendment. Any objections? Without objection, the amendment is adopted. House Bill 119 is on third reading for final passage. Any discussion? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President?
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote? Explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 43 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 119 having received a constitutional majority is declared passed. Clerk, read the next bill.
House Bill 230, Chair, Health and Government, Motor Vehicle Administration, Death Certificates, Insurance of Copies.
House Bill 230 is on third reading for final passage. Any discussion? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President?
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote? Explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 43 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 230 having received a constitutional majority is declared passed. Clerk, read the next bill.
House Bill 338, Delegate Moon, Criminal Procedure, Facial Recognition Technology Requirements, Procedures, and Prohibitions.
House Bill 338 is on third reading for final passage. Any discussion? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President?
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote? Explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 43 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 338 having received a constitutional majority is declared passed. Clerk, read the next bill.
House Bill 538, the Speaker, Land Use, Affordable Housing, Zoning, Density, and Permitting, Housing and Expansion Affordability Act of 2024.
House Bill 538 is on third reading for final passage. Any discussion? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President?
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote? Explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. Oh, yes, I'm sorry. Senator from District Number 1.
Thank you, Mr. President. I wanted to explain my vote.
Senator may proceed.
Thank you very much. Once again, I do believe that the administration, with the help of the Senate and the House, have come to a really, really good bill that will address across the state. And in my area of Allegheny County, it's very hard for us to build homes. And we have, I think it was 24 building permits last year for new homes. And the provision in this particular bill, when it talks about manufacturing homes, I do feel and understand local zoning control. However, we have a housing problem, and we've got to do whatever we can do. And in Allegheny County, I believe it will lower the rate of a home by $30,000 or $40,000. And so maybe next year I can come back and say we hit 50. And so I want to thank everyone's support and thank the governor for this good bill. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. All right, with 32 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 538, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk, read the next bill.
House Bill 693, the Speaker, Renters' Rights and Stabilization Act of 2024.
Yes, House Bill 693 is on third reading for final passage. Recognize the senator from the 42nd District.
Thank you, Mr. President. On the bill.
On the bill, Senator may proceed.
Thank you. I rise this afternoon to discuss House Bill 693. This is one of the governor's bills, 16 bills. I want to focus on the specifics of the bill, but first I want to speak more broadly about why this bill reflects a disappointing lack of strategic vision by the governor and his administration. Shortly after her inauguration as state controller, Brooke Learman embarked on an extensive and courageous effort to survey Maryland's economy. The results are embodied in a lengthy report that was made public shortly before this legislative session began. The report contained a veritable arsenal of data and reflected the input of some of the state's most thoughtful citizens. To summarize its conclusion in a single sentence, the report found that the economy of Maryland is stagnant, and that in fact, the state's economy has merely been treading water for the last several years. By comparison, our surrounding states are doing well, with growing economies, prospering business communities, impressive job growth, and rising standards of living. The logical takeaway from this depressing report was that Maryland should move forcefully to incentivize the state's business community to invest and expand and thereby create new jobs and grow the state's economy. But the controller and the Moore administration reached a different conclusion, namely that our stagnant economy is attributable to a lack of housing, and that the best way to move Maryland's economy forward would be to pursue the goal of 93,000 new housing units. Accordingly, with interest, I awaited the disclosure of the governor's legislative agenda for the 2024 session to see how he's going to incentivize the construction of 93,000 new housing units. Early in the session, I walked upstairs and with some enthusiasm signed on as a co-sponsor of 14 of the governor's 16 legislative initiatives. But when I looked for proposed legislation seeking to engender the creation of an additional 93,000 housing units, I found two bills that caused me serious concern. One of them is this bill, House Bill 693. So let me step back a moment and suggest that if the state of Maryland is indeed going to create 93,000 new housing units in order to jumpstart our stagnant economy, most of the new housing will necessarily be rental units. The creation of 93,000 single-family homes is unrealistic and would necessarily chew up thousands of square miles of productive Maryland farmland. So, most of the 93,000 new housing units will need to be newly constructed or refurbished multifamily resident rental buildings. There are only two ways of producing a huge number of new rental units. One way is to raise taxes on Maryland working families so the state can use the revenues to build public housing, costing many billions of dollars. We went that route many decades ago and learned that public housing was a disaster. Not much public housing has been built in Maryland in recent years, and for good reason. There's no sense repeating past mistakes. The other way of producing a huge number of new rental units is through the private sector. So let's consider the state of Maryland's private rental housing market. Remember that many of the state's landlords are small family businessmen and women. In fact, several are state senators, including the lady sitting immediately to my right and the gentleman sitting immediately behind me. And make no mistake, House Bill 693 and its progeny will have a serious impact on Maryland's landlords and the state's private rental housing market. So what is the state of Maryland's private rental market? How is it doing at creating new rental housing? The governor's representative provided me with a very informative fact sheet containing a graph entitled Total Maryland Rental Units versus Year. It shows that in the most recent 5-year period, Maryland's rental housing stock increased by just over 14,000 units. To put this into context, that's a 1.8% increase over 5 years, or about 0.3% increase each year. So doing some simple math, at the current rate of increase, it will take nearly 35 years for our private rental housing market to produce an additional 93,000 units of housing. The obvious question is, why are Maryland's providers of rental housing failing to build more buildings? Why are they sitting on their hands when there's obviously a need for more affordable housing in the state? If there's money to be made, why aren't they jumping at the opportunity to build more rental housing in order to accommodate those 93,000 families whom the governor believes are waiting for new housing units to become available. And I'm afraid the answer is staring us right in the face. Aggressive overregulation by government is the problem. During the 6 years that I have been in the state Senate, I have been sitting as a member of the Judicial Proceedings Committee. The General Assembly has passed multiple bills each year disadvantaging the owners of multifamily rental properties. Each year, our committee hears bill after bill which by design or effect would make it harder for Maryland's private rental housing providers to make money. Let me just remind you of a couple of these anti-landlord bills. In 2021, we passed a bill providing that tenants failing to pay their rent would be provided with free legal counsel to fight the efforts of their landlords to evict them. There was a huge fight that year because the original bill proposed an unprecedented increase in eviction filing fees in order to pay for the free legal counsel for the tenants. That fight was finally resolved when federal COVID money became available to pay for the free legal counsel. The bill also required the landlords to provide their tenants with a 10-day notice that the tenant had failed to pay the agreed-upon rent when due, as if the tenant didn't know that already, and that the landlord planned to file an eviction proceeding. In 2022, we passed more anti-landlord bills. Last year, we passed another piece of legislation requiring the landlords to give their tenants at least 90 days prior notice of rent increases. And finally, in the current session, there are numerous bills pummeling landlords with fees and onerous requirements. Just to cite a few, House Bill 245 doubles the annual cost for residential rental units to register with the lead rental registry. House Bill 117, which we just passed moments ago on third reader, establishes that a landlord who offers a residential dwelling unit for rent is deemed to warrant the habitability of the unit, thus opening landlords to tenant suits. And the bill also establishes a rebuttable presumption that a tenant is entitled to rent abatement and opens the door for a tenant to secure from the courts the right to deposit less than the full amount of the monthly rent in rent escrow cases. At the same time that the General Assembly has been passing anti-landlord legislation, Montgomery and Prince George's counties have implemented rent control. Other counties have enacted their own bills requiring landlords to pay fees and restricting their operations. And then there is this bill, initiated by Governor Moore, which proposes to increase the filing fee for eviction cases from $8 to $43 over a 600% increase. The given reason for the increased fee by the governor is to discourage landlords from filing so many eviction cases against tenants who don't pay their rent. The governor is unhappy that there are so many eviction cases in Maryland courts. The theory espoused by the governor's representative is that if tenants don't pay their rent, landlords should just let the non-payment of rent continue for months on end instead of going to court to either collect the rent or alternatively evict the non-paying tenant. And this bill also provides that in most cases, the landlord will only be able to require a tenant to post a 1-month security deposit, thus subjecting the landlord to greater risk of loss in the case of non-paying tenants. And there's another anti-landlord bill currently sitting in our committee, which would prevent landlords from declining to renew leases with their tenants unless the landlords can prove some sort of good cause to the satisfaction of a court. Now, you might take a look at any one of these bills and conclude that the bill makes sense and would reflect good public policy. The problem is, taken together, bill after bill after bill, year after year after year, Maryland's landlords are experiencing shell shock. They are convinced that the state of Maryland regards them as the enemy, that Governor Moore regards them as the enemy. Far more anti-landlords have been passed in the past 5 years in this body than anti-crime bills. With all of this legislation battering the state's landlord community year after year, one might well wonder why any business with money to invest would consider investing it in rental property in Maryland. And indeed, the numbers cited above show that new residential rental units are being created in Maryland at a desultory pace, just 0.3% per year over the course of the past 5 years. And in some parts of the state, the effect of all of this anti-landlord legislation at the state and local levels has caused the total cessation of the construction of new rental housing. For example, I understand that the last rental residential building was constructed in Tacoma Park 50 years ago. So if the governor feels that the answer to Maryland's stagnant economy is the rapid construction of 93,000 additional units of housing, most of them rental housing, why would he put the weight of his office behind this bill, which will only further discourage anyone from considering an investment in rental property in Maryland? Several days ago, I sat in a work session in my committee at which a representative of the Maryland Multifamily Housing Association, a lady who is a past president of the Maryland State Bar Association, and so a significant figure in this state, looked the governor's representative squarely in the eye and told him with some emotion in her voice that this bill is punitive, that it will punish not only the rotten apples in the state's landlord community, but those landlords who, despite the constant pummeling that they receive in Annapolis and at the county level, do their best to provide decent and fairly priced housing to the citizens of this state. Of course, the governor's representative was quick to respond that this bill is not intended to be punitive, but given the plethora of anti-landlord bills passed by the Maryland Assembly, not only this year, but in each of the past 5 years, it's not hard to conclude that Maryland landlords believe that they are being treated more punitively than many criminals. Now, I started by expressing my concern about the governor's lack of strategic vision. Let me conclude by expressing the hope that this speech reaches the governor's ears and that he hears its message. If he truly feels that the best way to try to propel Maryland's stagnant economy out of its lethargy is to rapidly construct 93,000 new housing units, this bill that he included in his 2024 legislative agenda, as well as the other anti-landlord bills, are going to have exactly the opposite effect. Rather than incentivize investors to create more rental housing, as the governor wants, they will actually disincentivize investment in rental housing in this state. As a postscript, I'm now going to say something that will probably surprise you. I plan to vote in favor of this bill. Not because that I think it will make good policy, but because I actively worked on the bill and contributed to ameliorating its negative impact on Maryland landlords. As amended, the bill is not nearly as punitive as originally introduced by the governor. And my view is that if I'm given the opportunity to significantly amend a bill so as to greatly improve it, I should then vote in favor of the improved amended bill. I remain seriously concerned about the governor's lack of strategic vision, but I will vote in favor of House Bill 693.
All right, thank you, Senator. All right. No, I appreciate that, Senator. Thank you for those reflections. All right, on the bills on third reading, recognize the minority leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd like to offer an amendment, please.
Senator has an amendment. Pages will collect and distribute the senator's amendment.
I'm going to try to get myself in a position where I can vote on this as well. And after my colleague's speech, I'm very close to being there, but I do think that this is an important amendment that I'll discuss when the time is right.
All right, Senator may explain the amendment.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. As my colleague just mentioned, there were a number of concerns with the bill as introduced, and I think the committee did a very good job of trying to satisfy a lot of those concerns. And one very simply was the initial surcharge that was required for a failure to pay rent action. Again, currently that's $8. The bill brought it in at $93, and JPR was able to settle at $43, which, again, a large increase, but certainly not what the bill had. This amendment is fairly simple, but again, it is important to kind of even this out a little bit, and it simply says that the court may allow a landlord to deduct this surcharge that's been assessed from the tenant's security deposit. And again, it still provides some protection that says that the deduction can be no more than the security deposit. Obviously, the judgment would have to be in the landlord's favor. But again, we do think that it is an amendment that will, again, kind of get things a little bit more towards the middle. And Mr. President, I'd ask that we move the amendment.
All right, Senator moves the amendment. Let's hear from the chair of the committee.
Thank you, Mr. President. First, I want to thank the senator for sharing the amendment ahead of time. Look, this has been a deliberative process. You're right, we did come down on that fee. This amendment makes it strikes a little bit of balance, right? So that the tenant doesn't have to absorb that cost, but the owner of the property gets the chance to be satisfied as well. So we view this as a friendly amendment.
All right, working on the bill. All right, on the amendment, any further discussion of the amendment? Any objections? Without objection, the amendment is adopted. Are there any further amendments to the bill or its title? All right, House Bill 693 is on third reading for final passage. The clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President?
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote? Explain their vote? If not, oh yes, Chair recognizes the chair of the committee has 2 minutes to explain his vote. Oh, we can strike the vote. We can strike the vote. Strike the vote.
We're almost there. We're almost
Strike
there.
the vote. Okay,
I don't want to ruin
amendment.
this moment.
Make
I have
it
a
even better.
technical amendment.
Pages will collect and distribute the senator's amendment. All right, Senator may explain the amendment.
It's a technical amendment. It makes the new structure of the pass-through structure actually effective. So it's just a technical amendment.
All right, Senator moves the amendment. Any objections? Without objection, the amendment is adopted. Are there any further amendments to the bill or its title? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President?
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote? Explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 35 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 693, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Yes. Oh, I'm sorry, Senator James. Yes, Senator from the 34th. Oh, okay. I think we're good. Okay, clerk will read the next bill at the end of the calendar. Well, is it? Yes, Senator. The senator is correct. Please. Yes.
It's been a long session. Thank you. I would like to change my vote on House Bill 538 from green to red, and I have turned in my, red card.
Wonderful.
Thank you.
All right. Any objections? Without objection, so ordered. The demerit slip. Yeah, there. All right. Any other vote change issues that we have to take up now? If not, let's go to 65. Clerk will read the first bill.
House Bill 763, Delegate Attar, Commission on Hate Crime Response and Prevention, Membership and Sunset.
All right. House Bill 763 is on third reading for final passage. Any discussion? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President?
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote? Explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 43 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 763 having received a constitutional majority is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 810, the Speaker Criminal Law Rapid Fire Activator Switch Auto Sear.
House Bill 810 is on third reading for final passage, recognizing the minority whip.
I wonder if I could ask the floor leader to yield to the chairman to yield.
Happy to. Senator may proceed.
I am actually really looking at this bill, trying to figure this out. Over the years, I've been incredibly frustrated and have expressed my frustration with the General Assembly's constant finding every reason to pass any sort of gun control bill while refusing to really crack down on folks who commit crimes with guns, steal firearms, etc. this is not a gun control bill because I think all of us agree we don't want people turning guns into machine guns. But I'm confused. I was trying to read the committee testimony from folks that I trust. So could you explain to me, after the amendments, what this bill does that isn't already current law?
Sure. This bill makes clear that under Maryland state law, that the addition of these modifiers that turn regular firearms into automatic weapons are covered and illegal under our state law.
Why is there any confusion as to whether they are covered or illegal? Because we banned bump stocks. And by the way, I would have voted for banning bump stocks if we had not put a very punitive prison sentence on it on a first offense of somebody who happened to have one of these things as and not knowing the law. I tried to get an amendment to say that and I don't believe actually, my friend, I think you may have been across the street. I'm sorry, the floor leader may have been across the street. I was trying to say if you should get a first offense must appear citation and never have these kind of things again. I was frustrated because I didn't think it was fair for somebody. Anyway, it doesn't matter. My point is, I think most of us, there's a consensus we don't want automatic guns in the hands of people without the proper permitting and all that kind of thing. So why is it not already, we already banned it, so what is different about these things?
So the testimony in front of our committee is that there were some state's attorneys who believed that this was already covered under Maryland law. But there were some who interpreted current law to indicate that this was not covered. And they wanted the clarity to know that taking a legal firearm and making it an automatic weapon, in other words, an illegal firearm, was covered under state law. This provides the clarity that they are seeking.
What are these items? Because they're not bump stocks, so what are they?
So these are switches
that
are affixed to firearms that essentially turn a firearm from a semi-automatic weapon, meaning, and I know you know this, but for the chamber, for every time you pull the trigger, one bullet is fired, to pulling the trigger once and allowing multiple bullets to come out of the firearm as an automatic weapon. So colloquially, we'd call this a machine gun.
But it's different than a bump stock.
It is different than a bump stock, that's correct.
But it's the same sort of concept.
It's analogous in that they are both items that can be added to firearms that make them into automatic weapons or to fire faster, but they are not the same exact thing. So they are similar in the outcome, but they are not similar in how they function. Right. Yep. So, and I'm happy to, you'll probably already know what a bump stock is, but I'm happy to explain the difference if that's what you're looking for here.
I guess my question is this switch something that could be an illegal, a legal thing by itself, and people get caught with it, and now they've been, I know it's illegal to turn a firearm into a automatic gun, because
under federal law, it is currently illegal to have possession of the switch itself.
But so why do we need the law? Because it's not expressly in state law?
That's right, and because, as I indicated before, some jurisdictions were interpreting current state law to not apply to this situation.
Could council let me, because I know you're on the, obviously communicating, when did the federal law make these types of things illegal?
In the 1980s, when machine guns were becoming more common on the streets of our communities.
Oh, okay. Yep. I guess maybe my final question, and then I may speak on the bill, Mr. President. There was testimony from Maryland Shall Issue from Mark Pennick, who I know is a respected legal scholar. The committee leadership does not always agree with him ideologically, but I know we respect his opinion and his viewpoints. He had a long letter which I read about why they were opposed to the bill, but it wasn't really about, they don't think we should have automatic firearms available to everybody. it was more about they felt that we should change, the bill should speak about machine guns and put this under a category of machine guns. Why did the committee choose to not do that?
So I also appreciate the contributions of the gentleman you're talking about. He's a constituent of mine, and he provides excellent legal analysis to our committee. I think there are multiple ways to accomplish this result, to get to this end, and I think the committee believed that this was actually the cleaner way to do it, the more elegant way to do it, that provided guidance to folks about what is and is not allowed.
Okay. Thank you very much. Mr. President, I'm going to speak on the bill for just a moment.
Senator, may proceed.
I actually really wrestled with this bill because I am very strongly committed to Second Amendment rights, and I'm firmly opposed to what our state has done. And I spoke earlier this year on the floor about how constantly targeting law-abiding citizens whenever there's an issue with firearms and making it harder for them is something that we've made a practice of, and I don't like it. I feel like it, to be honest, at times I feel like the General Assembly as a whole has bullied law-abiding firearm owners. And so I generally will vote against all bills dealing with what you would call, I guess, colloquially, gun control, because I don't, a locus of my frustration, frankly, yesterday, there's a bill in the House that we did pass out of this body that has finally, a couple times we've passed over to the other body, a bill to make theft of firearms a felony like they should be. And possession of a stolen firearm should be a felony with real jail time. And again, at least one body in this General Assembly doesn't want to do that. So it's maddening. So then we have what I characterize, and this is the bill from the Speaker of the House, who, you know, I'm sure the Speaker didn't have to do necessarily with why that was stripped in committee, but it's frustrating to have these little, in my view, little penny ante, like we're trying to figure out how to be sure we have it just right about restricting different types of firearms, different types of things, make sure our law is exactly the way we want it, but it's like this gaping hole for punishing criminals. I really would like to vote for things that are common sense. I don't want anybody to have access to a machine gun that's not supposed to have access to a machine gun. It sounds like that's not the case. Our law already pretty much covers this. It's just a question about how some of these things are defined. It's already illegal federally. So I'm going to vote no on this bill. I'd really like to be able to vote for some things that are common sense, but the frustration is we can't get any common sense on the way back on dealing with the people who are causing the firearm-related crimes in the state. And so, Mr. President, I think my vote is going to be no on this, but maybe there'll be some other discussion as well. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Senator. On third reading for final passage, any further discussion? Recognize the Senator from the 29th District.
Thank you, Mr. President. If I could ask the floor leader just for one clarification.
Senator, may proceed.
So the reason we did not come up with the same definition of machine gun that already exists in the federal system is why?
So I think the answer to your question is there are guns that are manufactured as machine guns that are designed to do that particular item. Those are obviously illegal under most circumstances, although you and I spoke about the special exemptions to that. This is different than a gun that is manufactured for auto fire. These guns are manufactured as traditional firearms, legal to purchase, but are modified with this particular switch that is not done by the manufacturer. And that's why we need to particularize this behavior, the addition of this switch, in order to create a more dangerous firearm that impacts my community. I've seen it in my county. We've seen it in urban areas in Maryland, cause tremendous destruction, and in our more rural areas as well.
Appreciate that, and obviously I'm not here to try to advocate that everybody ought to have machine guns. The definition of a machine gun underneath federal law already covers Sears. It already covers selector switches. They are illegal under federal law. And my question is, why didn't we just adopt the federal definition? And the reason is, and I hope this isn't the case, right? We don't want to make something that's illegal, already illegal again, just to say that this body passed a bill against firearms, right? And we don't want to make something more complicated for a legal gun owner, right? And the fact is, to get a stamp, to carry a machine gun, the state allows us to allow the federal government to regulate that. We allow, if you wanted to have a machine gun in the state, you would have a federal stamp, right? And I just don't understand why we're going to this level when it looks to me like if they're regulated federally, they pay the federal stamps, we should just adopt the federal definitions, and that way, whether it's law enforcement, whether it's the people, anybody dealing with these guns, it's crystal clear what the law is.
Sure. I'm empathetic with what you're saying, but as you know, the federal government and the state government are separate sovereigns, and so we have the ability to act separately from the federal government, and in some cases, and in my view, this case, we have an obligation to do so. When we write our state laws, we can't always exactly mimic the structure of the federal law. We, both us as policymakers, our nonpartisan legislative office as authors, need to work within the existing Maryland scheme. That includes basic norms as to like grammar, how things are written, basic structure as to how things are written. And oftentimes, the history of those norms creates a structure that is different than how it is written federally. And that's how we got into the situation we have here, where the Maryland definition meets the norms of Maryland drafting and the policy outcome we are seeking, and but nonetheless works in consort with the federal law, so will be illegal at both levels.
So if having one of these is illegal in the federal system,
right,
and it's illegal in the Maryland system, because it's illegal in the federal system that already exists, what are we doing by writing this law this way that then makes it better for us?
So just to clarify, just because something is illegal at the federal level does not allow our local state's attorneys to prosecute that offense. Those offenses are prosecuted by the U.S. Attorney's Office. So let me give you an example. We had a bill on this floor that went through unanimously that would make mail theft illegal in Maryland. The reason we did that here on the floor is because traditionally mail theft, mail is federal, is prosecuted at the federal level. The United States Attorney indicated that they would like the assistance of our local state's attorneys in prosecuting mail theft, so we voted for a bill that allows our state's attorneys to do the same. That's what this bill is doing. You're absolutely right that that these sears are illegal at the federal level, but it doesn't end the conversation. Our state's attorneys would like the power to prosecute bad actors, people who take normal firearms, turn them into automatic weapons, and cause havoc on the streets of our communities. This bill clarifies that they have the power to do so.
Thank you for your answers.
Thank you.
All right, on third reading for final passage, any further discussion? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President?
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote? Explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 32 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 810, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk, read the next bill.
House Bill 899, Delegate D. Jones, Higher Education Firefighters and EMS Recruitment and Retention Scholarship.
House Bill 899 is on third reading for final passage. Any discussion? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President?
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote? Explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 43 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 899 have received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 1082, Delegate Smith, Blueprint for Maryland's Future Implementation, Funding, and Independent Evaluations, Alterations.
House Bill 1082 is on third reading for final passage, recognizing the minority leader.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. If the floor leader would just mind yielding for a couple questions, please. This one. Thank you.
Barrett?
Senator from 43rd is the floor leader on this one? No? No, it's over here. No, I think floor leader. So you may proceed.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Just want to make sure I understood this bill. This dictates what the salary and benefits are going to be for the blueprint coordinator in each county, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
And that is the number that the AIB came up with. That was a fair salary So, just to have it kind of the same across the state.
Right, and that's what I said. So it's $150,000.
Correct.
Obviously, in some parts of the state, that's
A lot.
A lot, and some parts of the state, that's a very lot. I mean, so.
Correct.
So the question was that is that individual an employee of the county or of the state?
It's my understanding that person is an employee of the county.
County, that's what I thought. But so does this also then provide a split of how it's paid for? Because it says it provides a grant. So and the split is based on however the blueprint allocation is already, right?
Right.
Okay. Okay. I just wanted to make sure I understood that. Okay, thank you very much.
We just thought it was a good idea to have somebody that really knows the blueprint, because there's so much in it. It has to be somebody that really knows that blueprint to implement it kind of the same way across the state. That's why I just think it's so important to have that person.
And I appreciate that, and I've met these coordinators in each of my county as well too. I think they do an excellent job. I like to make sure that they're an employee of the county, though. I mean, and that's why that was important to me, because, again, at the end of the day, I think as we look at how the blueprint's getting paid for, the county obviously has a huge responsibility in that. And at the end, again, I think that it's important that there are no necessarily outside allegiances necessary to the state in the blueprint, but it also takes in the county's consideration on how it's best for each county to implement that.
I agree, and I've always been a real proponent of local control. I mean, you give them this much, but you let the counties implement, within those guidelines.
I appreciate that. Okay, thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. President.
All right, thank you, Senator. Recognize the senator from the 42nd District.
Thank you, Mr. President. I hate to ask the majority leader to stand up again, but I've got a question or two. And I'm asking these questions because I'm genuinely curious. So in one of my counties, Carroll County, I've attended a couple of anguished meetings with the school board members of the school board, and they're very concerned about how they're going to comply with the blueprint. And one of the things they emphasize is we need more time. So as I read the fiscal note on this bill, it says the due date for the initial report to the AIB of an independent evaluation of the state's progress in implementing the blueprint and achieving expected outcomes during the implementation period is extended from October 1, 2024 to December 1, 2026, a 2-year delay. Does that read the way I think it reads, that each of the counties is being given 2 additional years to comply with the blueprint and to report their compliance to the AIB?
That is not in the bill anymore.
Oh, it's not in the bill. Okay, so all this bill is at this point, I guess I'm reading the fiscal note, sorry.
You were busy speech writing.
Yes, I was. That's exactly right. So all this bill is about the coordinators now.
Yes.
Okay, could I ask why the decision was made to delete the 2-year additional flexibility period from this bill?
It was moved into the BRFA.
Okay, all right. So we get the 2-year implementation period extension is being provided one way or the other. Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Okay, I see the chair of the Budget and Tax Committee nodding his head vigorously. Great, thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, bill remains on third reading for final passage. Recognize the minority whip.
Mr. President, my good friend I know just sat back down, but I wonder if I could ask one more question of the floor leader.
Senator may proceed.
Absolutely.
Thank you. We haven't had a chance to talk much this session, the floor leader and I, on some of these bills. Just following up on the point that was made about the salary. That's a lot of money for some counties in particular. Was there any thought given to having some sort of prevailing wage where we would balance it based on the cost of living in a county?
No, not that I know of.
Yeah. I mean, that's okay. All right. Thank you.
But please understand that they're doing that same job. No matter what part of the state they're living in, they're doing that same job. So
Well, yeah, I agree, although, frankly, the jurisdictions I represent, that's probably not an unreasonable amount of money. I struggle with the mandate of exactly how much, but it's not an unreasonable amount of money. But I'm thinking of some of our smaller counties where it's a very small school system. Obviously, very big challenges, but small school systems. But thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. President.
All right, thank you, Senator. All right, any further discussion on the bill? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote, explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 31 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 1082 having received a constitutional majority is declared passed. Clerk, read the next bill.
House Bill 1390, Delegate Harris, Public Schools, Public School Construction, Funding, and Administration.
House Bill 1390 is on third reading for final passage. Any discussion? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote, explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 41 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 1390 having received a constitutional majority is declared passed. Clerk, read the next bill.
House Bill 1426, Chair, Ways and Means, Education, Blueprint for Maryland's Future, alterations.
House Bill 1426 is on third reading for final passage. Recognizing minority leader.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Again, could the floor leader just yield quickly, please?
This one is out of Triple E, so this one might be Senator from the 43rd is the floor leader on this one. Senator may proceed.
Thank you very much. If I was, again, reading this correctly, this dealt a lot with the pre-K, kindergarten education. Is that accurate?
That is accurate.
Okay. Could you just kind of define, again, it's a large bill, there's 25 pages, what the differences are in what this bill did, and I'm not sure if you, I'm hoping, but might be familiar with what we did with respect to pre-K and kindergarten in the BRFA, and how they may be similar or different?
Okay, I can do that. Can you give me another specific question while I try to
Not yet.
get my notes, if you could? Yes. Mr. President, I apologize. I wasn't anticipating, but I know that I have my notes, and so if we can just if we have room to just delay this.
Maybe 15 minutes?
For a minute.
Se-
Yes,
special order.
that's all I need.
Special order for 15
Order
minutes?
for 15 minutes,
Thank
please.
you.
Thank you.
All right,
Thank
any
you.
objections? Without objection, so ordered. All right, let's go to the concurrence calendar. This is the massive one out of finance, so number 16, message number 16. Clerk will read the first bill.
Senate Bill 117, Senator Bailey, Health Newborn Screening Program, Implementation of Testing.
Recognizing Chair of the Committee.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senate Bill 117 requires the Maryland Department of Health to screen newborns for new core conditions added by the Federal Human Services Recommended Uniform Screening Panel. The House amendments authorize the department to delay implementation of screening only for reasons of procurement problems and require the department to report periodically on its progress to implement screening. Move to concur.
All right, the committee moves to concur with the House amendments. Any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, Senate concurs with the House amendments. Senate Bill 117 is again before the Senate on third reading for final passage. This is an emergency bill. Clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote, explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 43 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 117, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
Senate Bill 236, Chair, Finance Committee, State Acupuncture Board, Sunset Extension.
Recognizing Chair of the Committee.
Thank you, Mr. President. This is one of 8 bills that will change the termination date for the boards from 3 years to 5 years. So the House amendment extends the termination date for the State Acupuncture Board to July 1st, 2030. Move to concur.
Chair moves to concur. Any objections? Without objection, the Senate concurs with House amendments. Senate Bill 236 is on third reading for final passage. Any discussion? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote, explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 43 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 236 having received a constitutional majority is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
Senate Bill 237, Chair Finance Committee, State Board for Certification of Residential Child Care Program Professionals, Sunset Extension.
Recognizing Chair of the Committee.
Thank you, Mr. President. Again, this changes the termination date of the board from 2027 to 2030. Move to concur.
All right, Chair moves to concur. Any objections? Without objection, the Senate concurs with House amendments. Senate Bill 237 is again before us on third reading for final passage. Any discussion? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote, explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 43 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 237 having received a constitutional majority is declared passed. Clerk, read the next bill.
Senate Bill 238, State Board of Dietetic Practice, Sunset Extension.
Recognizing the chair.
Thank you, Mr. President. This extends the termination date for the State Board of Dietetic Practice to July 1st, it's going to change from 2028 to July 1st, 2030. Move to concur.
Chair moves to concur with House amendments. Any objections? Without objection, the Senate concurs with House amendments. Senate Bill 238 is on third reading for final passage. Any discussion? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote, explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 43 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 238 having received a constitutional majority is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
Senate Bill 239, Chair of Finance Committee, State Board of Occupational Therapy Practice, Sunset Extension.
Recognizing Chair of the Committee.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senate Bill 239 changes the termination date for optometry from July 1st, 2028 to July 1st, 2030.
All right, Chair moves that we concur with the House amendments. Any objections? Without objection, the Senate concurs with the House amendments. Senate Bill 239 is again before us on third reading for final passage. Any discussion? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote, explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. 43 votes in the affirmative. Senate Bill 239, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk, read the next bill.
Senate Bill 240, Chair of Finance Committee, State Board of Examiners and Optometry, Sunset Extension.
Recognize the Chair of the Committee.
Mr. President, I just noticed on the last concurrence report there was a typo. Instead of it saying occupational therapy in my comments, it said optometry. So I don't know how to correct, but Senate Bill 239 was occupational therapy. Senate Bill 240 changes the expiration date from 2028 to 2030 for optometry.
Optometry. All right. Chair moves that we concur with House amendments. Any objections? Without objection, the amendments are adopted. Senate Bill 240 is again before us on third reading, final passage. Any discussion? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote, explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 43 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 240 having received a constitutional majority is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
Senate Bill 241, Chair of Finance Committee, State Board of Examiners, Psychologists, Sunset Extension.
Recognizing Chair of the Committee.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senate Bill 241 extends the termination date from July 1st, 2028 to July 1st, 2030 for the examiners of psychologists, State Board of Examiners for Psychologists.
All right, Chair moves that we adopt the House amendments. Any discussion, any objections? Without objection, the Senate concurs with the House amendments. Senate Bill 241 is again before us on third reading, final passage. Any discussion? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote, explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. 43 votes in the affirmative. Senate Bill 241, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
Senate Bill 242, Chair of Finance Committee, State Board of Social Work Examiners, Sunset Extension.
Recognizing Chair of the Committee.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senate Bill 242 requires the State Board of Social Work Examiners to submit certain information to the General Assembly and extends the termination date for the board to July 1, 2028. The House amendment extends the termination date to 2030, and we move to concur.
All right, Chair moves to concur with the House amendments. Any discussion? Any objection? Without objection, the House amendments are adopted. Question now is, or Senate Bill 242 is on third reading for final passage. Any discussion? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote, explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 43 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 242, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
Senate Bill 257, Chair of Finance Committee, State Board of Physical Therapy Examiners, Sunset Extension.
Recognizing Chair of the Committee.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senate Bill 257 extends the termination date for the State Board of Physical Therapy from July 1, 2028 to July 1, 2030. Move to concur.
Chair moves to concur. Any objections? Without objection, the Senate concurs with House amendments. Senate Bill 257 is again before us on third reading, final passage. Any discussion? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President?
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote? Explain their vote. If not, the clerk will take the call. 43 votes in the affirmative. Senate Bill 257 have received a constitutional majority. Is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
Senate Bill 516, Senator A. Washington, Economic Development, Maryland Aerospace and Technology Commission.
Madam Chair, can we special order this one for 5 minutes? Any objections? Let's special order the bill for 5 minutes. All right, clerk, read the next bill.
Senate Bill 541, Senator Guile, Maryland Online Data Privacy Act of 2024.
Recognizing the chair of the committee.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senate Bill 571 establishes consumer protections and rights as well as disclosure obligations relating to online personal data controlled or processed by certain entities that conduct business in the state or provide services or products that are targeted to the residents of Maryland. The House amendments align the Senate bill with the House cross-file as amended by the Senate on second reader, and we move to concur.
All right, chair moves that we concur on the House amendments. Any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the House amendments are adopted. Senate Bill 541 is again before us on third reading for final passage. Any discussion? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President?
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote? Explain their vote. If not, the clerk will take the call. With 42 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 541 having received a constitutional majority is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
Senate Bill 571, Senator Kramer, Consumer Protection, Online Products and Services Data of Children of Maryland's Kid Code.
Recognizing the chair of the committee.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senate Bill 571 requires businesses that provide an online product reasonably likely to be accessed by children to complete a data impact assessment of the online product. It also prohibits certain conduct for the protection of children engaged in online activity. The House amendments prohibit a business from allowing person other than child's parent or guardian to monitor the child's online activity without first notifying the child and the child's parent or guardian. The amendments also authorize a business to allow a child's parent or guardian to monitor the child's online activity or track the child's location without providing a signal to the child when the child is being monitored or tracked. We move to concur.
All right, the chair moves that we concur with the House amendments. Any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the Senate concurs with the House amendments. Senate Bill 571 is on third reading for final passage. Any discussion? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President?
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote? Explain their vote. If not, the clerk will take the call. With 43 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 571 having received a constitutional majority is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
Senate Bill 718, Senator Lamb, Maryland Pathway to Nursing Pilot Program Advisory Committee Establishment.
Recognizing the chair of the committee.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senate Bill 718 establishes the Maryland Pathway to Nursing Pilot Program under the Maryland Higher Education Commission to provide practical and financial support to nursing students. The House amendments add a representative of the Maryland Department of Labor to the advisory committee and make a technical change. We move to concur.
All right. The chair moves to concur with the House amendments. Any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the Senate concurs with the House amendments. Senate Bill 718 is again before us on third reading for final passage. Any discussion? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President?
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote? Explain their vote. If not, the clerk will take the call. 43 votes in the affirmative. Senate Bill 718, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
Senate Bill 790, Senator Klossmeyer, Maryland Medical Assistance Program, Employed Individuals with Disabilities.
Recognizing the chair of the committee.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senate Bill 790 alters requirements related to the Medicaid Employed Persons with Disabilities, or EID program. The House amendment adds a study requirement aligning the bill with the House Bill 822 as it passed the Senate. Move to concur.
Chair moves to concur with the House amendments. Any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the Senate concurs with the House amendments. Senate Bill 790 is again before us on third reading for final passage. Any discussion? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President?
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote? Explain their vote. If not, the clerk will take the call. With 43 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 790 have received a constitutional majority is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
Senate Bill 816, Senator Hester, Economic Development, Cyber Maryland Fund and Program alterations.
Recognizing Chair of the Committee.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senate Bill 816 alters administrative and funding requirements for the Cyber Maryland program and fund with TEDCO and establishes a mandated appropriation for the talent pipeline management. The House amendment reduces the mandated appropriation from $250,000 to $99,000. We move to concur.
All right. Chair moves to concur with the House amendments. Any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the Senate concurs with the House amendments. Senate Bill 816 is again before us on third reading for final passage. Any discussion? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote, explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. 43 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 816, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. If we could come back to that special order, the one that was the 5-minute. 516, Madam Clerk.
Senate Bill 516, Senator A. Washington, Economic Development, Maryland Aerospace and Technology Commission.
Recognizing the Chair of the Committee on the House amendments.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senate Bill 516 establishes the Maryland Aerospace and Technology Commission within the Department of Commerce to promote innovation in the fields of space exploration and commercial aerospace opportunities. The House amendment adds the president of the University of Maryland College Park or the president's designee to the commission. Move to concur.
All right, Chair moves to concur with the House amendments. Any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the Senate concurs with the House amendments. Senate Bill 516 is again before us on third reading for final passage. Any discussion? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote, explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 43 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 516, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. We were holding to see if he was able to make it back, but he said move it on along, had an emergency. All right, let's go to, we have one more. This is out of budget and tax, number 19. Clerk, read the first bill.
Senate Bill 286, Chair Budget and Tax, Homeowners and Homestead Property Tax Credit Application Filing Deadline Extension.
Recognizing Chair of the Committee on the House Amendments.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senate Bill 286 extends the application window for the homeowners and homestead tax credit programs. The House amended the Senate bill to match the cross. There's a technical difference, but we do not need to go to conference for that. Move to concur.
All right, Chair moves to concur with the House amendments. Any discussion? Any objection of the amendments? Without objection, the Senate concurs with the House amendments. Senate Bill 286 is again before us on third reading for final passage. Any discussion? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote, explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. 42 votes in the affirmative. Senate Bill 286, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk, read the next bill.
Senate Bill 434, Senator King, Education State Library Resource Center Funding.
Recognizing Chair of the Committee.
Thank you, Mr. President. This deals with the required funding for the State Library Resource Center. As passed by the Senate, increase the per capita amount in each fiscal year 25 through 27. The House only amended to increase in 25, and we will concur.
All right, the Chair moves to concur with the House amendments. Any discussion, any objections? Without objection, the Senate concurs with the House amendments. Senate Bill 434 is again before us on third reading for final passage. Any discussion? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote, explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 42 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 434, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk, read the next bill.
Senate Bill 579, Senator Gazzone, Primary and Secondary Education Breakfast and Lunch Program, Universal Expansion Report.
Recognizing Chair of the Committee.
Thank you, Mr. President. This bill requires a report from the Department of Education on the cost to provide meals to students at school regardless of income. House amended the report to acknowledge the state has made progress in this endeavor and to add that MSDE must also look at other states to see if there are models we concur.
All right, the chair moves to concur with the House amendments. Any discussion, any objections? Without objection, the Senate concurs with House amendments. Senate Bill 579 is again before us on third reading for final passage. Any discussion? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote? Explain their vote. If not, the clerk will take the call. With 43 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 579, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. All right, we are now up to another triple E. This is message number 20. Clerk will read the bill. We're pulling it just a moment. It was a late release. All the way back on third reading calendar number 1 for the Senate. This one. One of the first bills we've passed. 80 days later, it's almost there. That's right, apparently.
great. Okay, do this. Yeah, it's, hang on, wait. Okay.
All right, we're having a bit of a technical snafu. Let's see if we have.
It doesn't want to be pulled up.
Do we have 21?
Mm-hmm.
All right. This is out of finance. Clerk will read the bill.
Senate Bill 245, Chair of Finance Committee, Maryland Community Health Resources Commission, Sunset Extension and Program Evaluation.
This is a please recede. So let's recognize the chair on the House amendments.
Mr. President, Senate Bill 245 extends the termination date for the Maryland Community Health Resources Commission. The House amendment extends the date by 10 years instead of 3. We move to concur. This is
That's,
Senate Bill 245.
yes.
I have some others that are not to receive, but not this one.
Well, why don't we do this? We have it on the question on the board is to not concur and recede.
Yeah, and I have concur, and I definitely
I think
concur. We
this is
discussed
definitely a concur, yeah. So we want to just give it a moment to flip. Lots of things flying. This is that time of year. We make it work.
This was by request of
There we
the
go.
Chair of Health and Government, so.
Excellent. All right, we move to concur. And we talked about the amendments. The chair moves that we concur with the House amendments.
Yes.
Any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the Senate concurs with the House amendments. Senate Bill 245 is before the Senate on third reading for final passage. Any discussion? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote? Explain their vote. If not, the clerk will take the call. 37 votes in the affirmative. Senate Bill 245, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. All right. I think that does it for the concurrences. We have some not concur. Let's do those. This is 429, Senate Bill 429. Clerk will read the bill.
Senate Bill 429, Senator Bailey, Corporations and Assistant Protestant Episcopal Church, Diocese of Washington, study of property held in trust by the United Methodist Church.
All right. This is out of judicial proceedings, and we don't have the chair of judicial proceedings. All right. Let's recognize the senator from the 20s. Oh, jeez. All right, let's go ahead. Senator from the 26th could give us. Oh, all right, we have the chair.
Thank you, Mr. President. We made the decision today to not concur, and we have the conference committee at hand.
All right, so the committee moves us to not concur with the House amendments. Without objection, we will adopt the motion. Clerk will read the message.
By the Majority Leader, ladies and gentlemen of the House of Delegates, the Senate refuses to concur in the House amendments and respectfully requests the House recede from its position. Should the House prefer a conference committee to confer on the disagreeing votes of the two houses, the Senate appoints Senator Muse, Chair, Senator McKay, Senator West. Said bill is returned herewith by order. Nicole Alexander, Secretary.
Message having been read is adopted. All right, I think that does it for not received. Okay, now we have the fun ones. We have a couple of the fun ones, and by fun I mean not fun. Let's go to 465, House Bill 465.
House Bill 465, Delegate Boafo, workplace fraud and prevailing wage violations, civil penalty and referral. House will not concur. Please recede.
The clerk will read the message, the first message.
Message to the Senate by the Majority Leader. Ladies and gentlemen of the Senate, the House of Delegates refuses to concur in the Senate amendments and respectfully requests the Senate recede from its position. Said bills returned herewith by order. Sylvia Siegert, Chief Clerk.
Message having been read is ordered journalized. Let's recognize the chair who has a different idea.
With a different idea. Thank you, Mr. President. House Bill 465 increases the maximum civil penalty to $10,000 for each employee that an employer is found to have knowingly failed to properly classify under the Workplace Fraud Act. The bill also requires the Commissioner of Labor and Industry to make referrals. The Senate amendments increase the civil penalty for multiple violations of the Workplace Fraud Act. We move to recede from the Senate amendments.
All right, so we're going to have to do this step by step. So the chair has now moved for us to reconsider the vote by which the bill has passed third reading. Are there any objections? Without objection, the motion carries. The bill is on third reading, and the chair has now moved to reconsider the vote by which the amendments were adopted. Any objections? Without objection, so ordered. The bill is now, we've now removed the amendments. I'm sorry, we've reconsidered the amendments. Now we need to reconsider the vote by which we adopted the amendments. Is that right? Yes. Without objection, are there any objections to withdrawing the amendments? Without objection, so ordered. Which means the bill is again before us on third reading for final passage without the Senate amendments. Any discussion? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote? Explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 30 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 465, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. We've got another one. Oh, yes, clerk will read the message.
By the Majority Leader, ladies and gentlemen of the House of Delegates, the Senate recedes from its position on House Bill 465. Said bill is returned herewith by order. Nicole Alexander, Secretary.
Message having been read is adopted. We have another recede. This will be 603. Clerk will read the bill and the message.
House Bill 603, Delegate Solomon, Consumer Protection, Online Products and Services, Data of Children, Maryland's Kid Code.
All right. Message having been read is ordered journalized. Recognize the chair of the committee.
Thank you, Mr. President. We had some misunderstanding on the delayed effective date, so the House was changing one date while the Senate was changing the other, and in the end, the Senate amendment delayed the effective date by 1 year, but we moved to recede from the Senate amendment.
All right. So in order to recede, the chair has now moved to reconsider the vote by which the bill passed third reading. Any objections? Without objection, the motion carries. Motion now is to reconsider the vote by which the amendments were adopted. Are there any objections? Without objection, motion carries. Next, chair has moved to withdraw the amendments, the committee's amendments. Any objections? Without objection, so ordered. House Bill 603 is again before the Senate on third reading for final passage. Any discussion? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote? Explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 43 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 603, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Let's go to, I always forget that one. Clerk, read
message to the
message.
House of Delegates by the Majority Leader. Ladies and gentlemen of the House of Delegates, the Senate recedes from its position on House Bill 603, said bills returned herewith by order Nicole Alexander, Secretary.
All right, message having been read is adopted. We're next going to go to House Bill 1128. Clerk will read the messages. Still? We'll let it reset. Let's read this bill and see if this will.
Okay. House Bill 1128, Chair Economic Matters Committee, Labor and Employment, Workplace Development, Talent Innovation Program and Fund.
All right, these are just messages to do the conference committee. So if we could have the clerk read the first message.
By the Majority Leader, ladies and gentlemen of the Senate, the House of Delegates refuses to concur in the Senate amendments and respectfully requests the Senate recede from its position. Should the Senate prefer a conference committee to confer on the disagreeing votes of the two houses, the House appoints Delegate Shi, Chair, Delegate Boafo, Delegate Wyville. Said bills return herewith by order Sylvia Siegert, Chief Clerk.
Message having been read is ordered journalized. Clerk will read the next message.
Message to the House of Delegates by the Majority Leader. The Senate does not recede in the Senate amendments. The Senate respectfully requests the House reconsider and concur. Said bills returned herewith by order Nicole Alexander, Secretary.
All right, message having been read is adopted. Because these are just messages, we don't have them in the calendar. They've come in without being on the calendar. So they're on the top bar. Senators should be able to see it on the top bar, but for those ones, they won't come up. All right, let's see. We have a second reader out of budget and tax. Are we ready? Third reading. Okay, let's take that up. This is 350. Yeah, this is House Bill 1426 that we were looking for our information. Clerk will read the bill.
House Bill 1426, Chair, Ways and Means, Education Blueprint for Maryland's Future, alterations.
Recognizing the minority leader on the bill, and the bill's on third reading for final passage. So recognize the minority leader.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. If the floor leader could yield now, please.
Senator may proceed.
Thank you. I think we were just starting our conversation about pre-K, early childhood education, and there were a number of things that this bill did, and there's also some changes we made in the BRFA. And I was just wondering how they may be related or how they might be different.
They're not related. So the BRFA, of course, is having to do with the funding aspects of it. This bill addresses a number of the pillars. As you know, Pillar 1, the early childhood, and it's focused mostly on the expansion of 30 additional Patty and Judy family support centers. And it also makes and it clarifies that some of these centers are eligible for certain grants, specifically the Nancy Grassmick grant. It's also including a subsidy for the National Board certification for non-classroom based teachers. And again, that's to address the need or the problem that we're having with the workforce.
Okay, so we had talked previously about trying to provide some relief for pre-K from the private sector, right? They had been asked to somewhat step in and try to help us when we didn't have physical space for some pre-K and early childhood education.
That's not this bill.
So this doesn't address that at all.
No, what it does do, however, is it moves the date back a year for the changes to the high quality for the requirements. So it does give the locals, that would also include the private, an additional year.
So it pushes it out.
Farther.
Not brings it back.
More time, yes.
We get more time in doing that. So this This bill then does help out counties?
It does, and yes, absolutely.
There was a letter from MABE in support that talked about reestablishing the maintenance of effort escalator. Did that occur, or was that taken?
It's not this bill. Oh, wasn't it? That's not in this bill.
That's not a bill. So
No,
that's,
it
so
wasn't addressing that at all.
That's been taken out. So
No, I'm sorry, just to clarify, Mr. President, it wasn't taken out, it wasn't part of the bill.
It wasn't part ever? Okay. Then does this do anything, again, I'm going to make sure I'm on the same bill.
Sure.
Was there a conversation in this, or a topic on this bill about the geographical cost of education index? And nope, same, different bill? Oh, that's 1426. Okay. Won't go on that one. Then just, was there any other way that this helped out the counties? I think one of the concerns has been, obviously, we've talked a lot about funding here from the state perspective, but the counties, a number of them have been struggling as well too on how they're going to fund the blueprint. Was there any conversation about that or anything done in this bill that was going to help or hurt the counties with respect to funding?
I would say the discussion in this bill had more to do with certification requirements, with access to funds to support the requirements for the professionalization of the early childhood centers that come under Pillar 1 of the blueprint.
So mainly just respect to that Pillar 1.
Right, and then there was the other pillar had to do with the CTE, so the extent to which counties are interested in that as well. It also addresses that by allowing for an extension of the deadline for them to meet their 45% goal there as well. Yeah, so.
Okay, so again, those extensions are for the entire blueprint to be moved out, but in a sense that could benefit.
Well, that would be, there are many, many dates throughout the entire blueprint and multiple pillars. So if we can stay in the Pillar 1 with early childhood, and then also the pillars around a minor one in the governance area around when the AIB needs its reports. But again, this is focused very much on
Pillar 1.
Yeah.
Pillar 1. Okay. And pushing that out a little bit as we had requested.
It's early trouble. Oh, sorry, good.
Oh, I thought
we're
you
just having a in-house debate.
Okay. Thank you very much, Madam Floor Leader. Mr. President, obviously those are my main concerns. I just wanted to see where we are from the local perspective. Again, we've talked a lot about the state and their obligations towards the blueprint. Just trying to really see, have we, when you get a bill that talks about alterations of the blueprint, just want to see if we have done anything that some of us could go back to our counties, in the next week or so when we have to provide the updates of what we've done down here, or maybe what we didn't do. Did we find ways to provide local government any relief on the cost of the blueprint? I was hoping that might have been in here. I do, again, we'll be able to say that we did some with respect to pre-K and early childhood education. But again, just wanted to check on that and verify that that's what we did there.
Mr. President, just a word. I believe that all of us can walk away and say that we've done a number of important things, but I just want to clarify that this was a bill that was requested by the AIB and some of the other entities, so it was addressing their specific concerns and not the sort of comprehensive look at the blueprint. So I just wanted to clarify.
And thank you very much. Doesn't make me feel much more comfortable when the AIB is requesting changes. I'd rather hear at least from, sometimes MABE and sometimes the superintendents, but I'd like to also hear if MACO might have you know,
Everybody, I will tell you, everyone is good with these. I just want to let it doesn't happen often, but let the president be assured that the committee spent a lot of time thinking about this. Some of the things that were recommended were not accepted. Some were amended. All the parties were engaged, and we are going to have the expansion of 30 new Patty and Judy centers. So there's going to be 30 new early childhood centers in the state of Maryland.
that is a good part, and I'll bring that back to the counties. But thank you again very much, and thank you, Mr. President.
All right, on the bill, third reading, Chair recognizes the senator from the 29th.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. If the floor leader could yield for a question.
Senator may proceed.
If I could get you to go to page 14 of the reprint. Okay. The one thing that in the rural counties that we are very intimately worried about is dual enrollment. And if you go down to where it talks about the phased-in expansion of dual enrollment to maximize the number of students, and I know we talked about this, but the bill's changed some, and I just wanted to make sure the one thing that if you could explain to me, if I get down to line 13, in consultation with each local school system, this says it may limit the number and types of courses that a student dually enrolls at the student's public high school and at an institution of higher education, may enroll in during the school year at the institution of higher education. And it talks about pathways in accordance moving forward with the CCR. And my question is the need to limit. We're talking about dual enrolled high school students. We're talking about making opportunities for students in rural communities that don't have the opportunity when they're freshmen and sophomore to take advanced placement because our schools don't offer it. And all of a sudden we're saying, well, you're a junior and you're a senior, and we have the opportunity because you took a test to limit you. And that is a concern.
Yes, and
so my question is, if you
question, I share the concern, and so we did have conversation, but I'm trying to find what would you like to know?
So I'd like you to assure me that this bill does not limit opportunities for children in the rural areas trying to take at dual enrollment and trying to advance their education. Yes. And if that's the case, yes, why in fact in the legislation does it say limit? We're going to limit things, and the whole idea from the blueprint is to make a education, we were all here, right, for everyone, no matter of your zip code. Right. And so if you don't have the opportunities in a rural area as a freshman and as a sophomore, right, to take AP classes, then what I'm worried about is, does that opportunity, are we limiting that in the rural areas?
Mm-hmm. Mr. President, I assure you that I share the concerns representing a district that also has a lot of those challenges. There's a lot of similarities between what Baltimore City and the surrounding areas have in common in our rural areas. In terms of access to AP programs and wanting alternative pathways to be able to earn a living wage. I assure you that there's nothing in this bill. What the senator might be looking at is that there was a concern expressed by locals that the funding or aspirations around those dual enrollment did not meet the funding, and so the availability to actually do that. So that's why I wanted to provide some flexibility for locals to sort of ease into meeting our goals there. So it came from a concern of trying to make sure that we match the funds with the ability to offer that.
Thank you.
All right. On third reading for final passage, if there's no further discussion, the clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President?
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote? Can we ring the bells, please? See if we have any senators wish to explain their vote. If not, the clerk will take the call. 32 votes in the affirmative. House Bill 1426, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. All right, let's go to message number 20. Clerk will read the bill.
Senate Bill 250, Chair, Education, Energy, Environment Committee, County Public Libraries, Overdue Library Materials, Minors.
Recognizing the chair of the committee on the House amendments.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senate Bill 250 prohibits a county public library from charging a fine for overdue library materials borrowed by a minor. The House amendments expand on the basic prohibition by adding different types of fines and fees, specifying which materials certain fees may not be charged for minors not returning materials under specified circumstances. Mr. President, the committee has decided to move to concur with those House amendments.
All right, the committee moves to concur with the House amendments. Any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the House amendments are adopted. Senate Bill 250 is again before us on third reading for final passage. I think this is one of the first bills that we passed this year, so I think it was. All right, any discussion? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President?
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote? Explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. For 31 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 250, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. All right. Let's see. We've got budget and tax. This is calendar 38. Clerk will read the first bill.
House Bill 557, Delegate Adams, Sales and Use Tax Exemption, Aircraft Parts and Equipment, Repeal of Reporting Requirement, and Extension of Sunset. Favorable.
Recognizing the senator from District 2.
Thank you, Mr. President. House Bill 557 is identical to Senate Bill 574 that passed the House unanimously earlier this session. The bill extends from June 30th, 2025 to June 30th, 2030, the termination date of the sales tax exemption. The bill also repeals a specified reporting requirement. There are no committee amendments. Move the adoption of the favorable committee report.
All right, floor leader moves to the adoption of the favorable committee report. Any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the favorable committee report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, House Bill 557 is hereby ordered passed for third reading. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 812, Delegate J. Long, Tri-County Council for Southern Maryland Agriculture Development Commission funding.
Recognizing the senator from the 29th.
Thank you, Mr. President. House Bill 812 permanently extends the requirement beyond fiscal year 2025 that the governor include funding in the annual budget for the Tri-County Council for Southern Maryland from the Cigarette Restitution Fund. There were no committee amendments. Move the adoption of the favorable committee report.
All right, floor leader moves to the adoption of the favorable committee report. Any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the favorable committee report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, House Bill 812 is hereby ordered passed for third reading. Clerk, read the next bill.
House Bill 1472, Delegate D. Jones, Professional Volunteer Firefighters, Innovative Cancer Screening Technologies Program funding.
Recognizing chair of the committee.
Thank you, Mr. President. This is the matching cross file of Senate Bill 578 as passed unanimously by the Senate. It authorizes the governor to include at least $500,000 in the annual budget for the Professional and Volunteer Firefighter Innovative Cancer Screening Technology Program. There's no amendments. Move adoption.
All right, the chair moves for the adoption of the favorable committee report. Any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the favorable committee report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, House Bill 1472 is hereby ordered passed for third reading. Let's go to judicial proceedings, report number 49. Clerk will read the bill.
House Bill 1047, Delegate Bartlett, Consumer Protection Self-Administered Sexual Assault Evidence Collection Kits, favorable with two amendments.
Recognizing the chair of the committee.
Thank you, Mr. President. Across the country, these self-administered sexual assault evidence kits have proliferated throughout the 50 states. What this bill did initially was to ban the sale, distribution, or use of them in the state of Maryland. As amended by the Judicial Proceedings Committee, we said that a ban would be in place until the Attorney General could promulgate regulations regulating their use, distribution, or sale in the state of Maryland, subject to the Maryland Consumer Protection Act and the civil and criminal penalties associated with them. Those are the two amendments adopted by the Judicial Proceedings Committee. Mr. President, I'd move for the adoption of the two committee amendments and the favorable committee report.
Floor moves for the adoption of the two committee amendments and the favorable committee report. On the amendments, any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the two committee amendments are adopted. Question now is on the amended report. Any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the amended report is adopted. Chair recognizes the majority leader has an amendment.
Thank you, Mr. President. I have an amendment.
All right, the pages will collect and distribute the senator's amendment. All right, the senator may explain the amendment.
Thank you. This amendment prohibits these self-administered sexual assault test kits, conforming the bill to the posture of the House cross-file. It does, however, retain the amendment, making this an emergency measure, and I move the amendment.
All right, the senator moves the amendment. Any objections to the amendment? Without objection, the amendment is adopted. Are there any further amendments? If not, House Bill 1047 is hereby ordered passed to third reading. Recognize the majority leader.
Yes, Mr. President, can I'd like to move that we do two readings in one day.
The majority leader's moved to suspend the rules to do two readings on the same day. Are there any objections to the majority leader's motion? Without objection, the rules having been suspended, House Bill 1047 is now before the Senate on third reading for final passage. Any discussion? If not, could we ring the bells, please? The clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President?
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote? Explain the vote. Yes, Chair recognizes Senator from District 1.
Thank you, Mr. President. To explain my vote, I tend to believe that what the Judicial Proceedings Committee did yesterday was actually an example of true, fair, honest, rip the Band-Aid off the wound debate. I was actually very, very proud of the work that the committee did during the 45 minutes to an hour and a half. There was, I believe, true openness of every single member, and I tend to believe that as an example of that was that there actually was a motion on the bill as now amended, what we're voting on here, but that actually failed for lack of a second. How many times does that happen in our committees? When it actually is true democracy, debate, and the reason I'm voting against this is not necessarily on the actual bill, but that I'm disappointed that this body didn't have the robust, honest debate that we had in the Judicial Proceedings Committee. And I tend to believe that the public needs to see that. And I tend to believe that someone who doesn't have a background in the law, who has been on JPR for now 2 years, have learned that
Senator's time has expired. Sorry.
Really?
Yes.
Okay.
To 2 minutes. All right.
All right, well, thank you. My red vote is because I don't believe that this is the right path for it, but more especially, we didn't honor the work that was done in JPR. Thank you for the grace and going over,
Thank you,
sir.
Senator.
Mr.
All right,
President.
recognize the senator from 30th District has 2 minutes to explain her vote.
Thank you, Mr. President. And colleagues, I appreciate the debate and the work the Judicial Proceedings Committee put into this bill. I went back last night and watched the debate, and I appreciate the thoughtfulness that went into the amendments. Just rising in support of my green vote on the bill as amended 5 years ago when I first came to the Senate. As the youngest woman ever elected to the Maryland Senate, I don't like to talk about that here, but I do feel like I have an obligation to support and stand up for the most vulnerable in our communities. 5 years ago, there was an article in the Baltimore Sun about 3 police departments, Baltimore County, Anne Arundel County, Harford County, where our police departments were handing waivers to victims of sexual assault and rape at hospitals, asking them to sign away their right to prosecute. Within hours, thankfully, the senator from Baltimore County and I were able to call our police chiefs and respectfully request that they stop that practice for obvious reasons, and we were able to fix that. And I rise to say every day since that day, I have been proud to serve my district and the people of Maryland and feel like we have made tremendous progress. Are we perfect yet in ensuring that the most vulnerable, the victims in our communities, feel comfortable and capable of seeking justice in every circumstance? No, but we've made tremendous progress. Much of that progress is due to the good work of the JPR committee, the good work of the senator from Baltimore County to my left, and I feel like the bill as amended continues that progress we've made to stand up and support, again, our primary function here, the most vulnerable in our communities, and make sure that at the end of the day, there's an opportunity for justice to be served. And so I'm proud to cast a green vote for the bill as amended. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. Any further senators wish to explain their vote? If recognize the senator from District 4 has 2 minutes to explain his vote.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just stand up and I want to explain my vote for the purposes of these kits are very misleading for victims. They create an opportunity for the victims to be re-victimized when they learn that these evidence collection kits are actually have zero evidentiary value. I spoke with Pam Holtzinger, who's the forensic director of nursing for the International Association of Forensic Nurses. She happens to be my sister. We have these discussions regularly. She has the same concerns that I've been expressing for days about this very, very, the process is important, and this taints the process. It creates the opportunity for re-victimization. It also provides no health care options, nor any mental health follow-up. And getting the patients into these forensic nurses allows them to get these treatments and these resources available to them immediately. We all know, we've spoken many times, the importance of wraparound services. They are paramount for a successful conclusion for many of these victims to find closure and moving forward. And with that, I'm proud to cast my green vote.
Thank you, Senator. Any further senators wish to explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the, oh, I'm sorry, Senator from District 11.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. I want to thank the Judicial Proceedings Committee for their hard work. I know they took this seriously, so I do appreciate all of the time and effort, and I really do appreciate all of the work we have done, at least since I've been here over the past 10 years. We have worked on these issues to make our society better, to make our criminal justice system better, to make our healthcare system better, so that we can give survivors the dignity and assistance and support they critically need in what might be the most traumatic period of their life. This is not the way to do it, and so I'm very, very proud to cast my vote and thank all of you for all of your support and all of the efforts that we will continue to do to make our society more supportive and encouraging to people to seek the help that they need. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. Any further senators wish to explain their votes? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 41 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 1047, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Let's go to Calendar 50, Report 50. Clerk will read the bill.
Senate Bill 949, Senator Hedelman, Consumer protection, self-administered sexual assault evidence collection kits, favorable with 2 amendments.
Recognizing Chair of the Committee.
Thank you, Mr. President. As amended, the Senate Bill 949 was in the same posture as House Bill 1047, which we just amended. I'd move for the adoption of the favorable committee report and the 2 committee amendments.
Floor leader moves for the adoption of the 2 committee amendments and the favorable committee report. On the amendments, any discussion? Any objection? Without objection, the amendments are adopted. Question now on the favorable report as amended. Any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the amended report is adopted. Chair recognizes the majority leader has an amendment. All right, pages will collect and distribute the senator's amendment. All right, majority leader will explain the amendment.
Yes, this is the same as the amendment on the last bill.
Conforms it.
Identical. It conforms it to the House bill.
All right. Senator moves, majority leader moves the amendment. Any objections? Without objection, the amendment is adopted. Any further amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, Senate Bill 949 is hereby ordered printed for 3rd reading. All right. All right.
I'm sure it's just because I'm reading this too fast. I just want to verify that this will be an emergency bill as the House bill is as well. It doesn't say it up there, and I didn't see it in glancing very quickly.
It's in the committee, apparently it's in the committee report as amended. Yes.
Thank you.
All right. Let's go to, that does it for that calendar. We have some 3rd reading calendars. We have everybody here. So let's do these last 3 here, 3rd readers. This is number 62. Clerk will read the first bill.
House Bill 149, Delegate Pippy, medical records destruction, notice and retrieval.
House Bill 149 is on 3rd reading for final passage. Any discussion? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote, explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 43 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 149 have received a constitutional majority as declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 387, Baltimore City Delegation, Public Information Act, Surveillance Images, Illegal Dumping in Baltimore City.
House Bill 387 is on 3rd reading for final passage. Any discussion? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote, explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 43 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 387 having received a constitutional majority is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 432, Delegate Kaufman, Courts and Judicial Proceedings and Criminal Procedure Technical Corrections, References to Intellectual Disability.
House Bill 432 is on 3rd reading for final passage. Any discussion? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote, explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 42 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 432 having received a constitutional majority is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 495, Baltimore County Delegation, Education, Baltimore County School Board Nominating Commission, Publishing and Meeting Requirements.
House Bill 495 is on 3rd reading for final passage. Any discussion? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote, explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 42 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 495 having received a constitutional majority is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 796, Carroll County Delegation, Carroll County Public Facilities Bond.
House Bill 796 is on 3rd reading for final passage. Any discussion? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote, explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 43 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 796 having received a constitutional majority is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 967, Delegate Wyville, Town of Keedysville, Parking of Vehicles Restrictions.
House Bill 967 is on 3rd reading for final passage. Recognize the majority whip.
Thank you, Mr. President. Could the chairman of Judiciary come in, please?
Chair yield for a question.
Listen, I'm from Washington County, and I know where Keedysville is. Could you tell me why? What is this bill? What does this bill do? Can I park my car in Keedysville?
Let's see from Senator from
Mr.
District
President?
1, floor leader of the bill.
Be glad. Yes, Mr. President, you can park your car in Keedysville. That's not a problem. What the problem is that the bill actually speaks on Class E trucks, Class F tractors, G trailers, Class H school buses, and Class P passenger bus. So I should have asked first, Mr. President, if that was the vehicle we were driving. But an automobile without, not a problem. This town and the town that we did this for last year does not have a police force. So there is a very hard way to enforce that people are using big vehicles and parking them on the town streets, taking up all the parking so that the people who have smaller cars can even use. The one, yes, ma'am?
So if they don't have a police to enforce it, what happens?
This bill will prohibit them, and now
they get a police now.
And now we can have state police. We can have state police enforce it.
Oh, the state police will come in
and the county as well.
All right, thank you very much. I just want to be careful about where I park my car when I go to Keedysville.
And the neat thing about it, if you do show up in your Class F tractor trailer and you're using it for essential, immediate use, you still will be able to do that. And what is meant by that is, let's say you were using your tractor trailer to move into Keedysville and unload all your stuff.
Thank you. Keedysville sounds like it is ready to go. All right. Thank you, Senator. All right, on third reading, final passage, any discussion? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President?
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote? Explain their vote. If not, the clerk will take the call. With 43 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 967, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed, and the good people of Keedysville are ready for the future. Yes, recognizing the Vice Chair of the committee.
Thank you, Mr. President. My button didn't work on HB 432 in the green, please.
432 in the green. Any objections? Without objection, so ordered. All right, calendar 63. Clerk will read the first bill.
House Bill 1016, Frederick County Delegation, Frederick County School Construction Master Plan Work Group.
House Bill 1016 is on third reading for final passage. Recognize the senator from District 3.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would like to request a special order of this bill till Monday while I work with other members of the delegation on a clarifying amendment.
All right, Senator,
thank you.
Move to special order the bill. Any objections? Without objection, the bill will be special ordered to the appropriate time tomorrow. Clerk will read the next bill. What's tomorrow, Sunday? Oh, I didn't tell you we're coming back? Appropriate time on Monday. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 1032, Delegate Solomon, Highways, Tourist Area and Corridor Signage Program.
House Bill 1032 is on third reading for final passage. Any discussion? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President?
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote? Explain their vote. If not, the clerk will take the call. With 43 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 1032, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 1034, Baltimore City Delegation, Baltimore City Sheriff Staffing.
House Bill 1034 is on third reading for final passage. Any discussion? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President?
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote? Explain their vote. If not, the clerk will take the call. 43 votes in the affirmative. House Bill 1034, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 1056, Delegate Gazzone, State Board of Pharmacy, Prohibition on Discrimination Against 340B Drug Distribution.
House Bill 1056 is on third reading for final passage. Any discussion? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President?
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote? Explain their vote. If not, the clerk will take the call. With 35 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 1056, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 1167, Delegate Foley, Maryland Center for School Safety, Secure School Emergency Response Grant Program, established.
House Bill 1167 is on third reading for final passage. Recognize Vice Chair of the committee. On the bill? Oh, nope. Third reading? Final passage. All right. Any discussion? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President?
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote? Explain their vote. If not, the clerk will take the call. With 43 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 1167, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 1308, Delegate Wyville, Real Property Recordation of Instrument with False Information, Penalties, and Actions to Quiet Title.
House Bill 1308 is on third reading for final passage. Any discussion? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote? Explain their vote. If not, the clerk will take the call. 43 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 1308, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Let's go to third reading calendar number 66. Clerk will read the calendar.
third reading calendar number 66, consent calendar number 49.
All right, Senators, these are third reading House bills for final passage on consent calendar number 49. Are there any bills that Senators wish to separate?
Mr. President,
Yes, recognize Senator from...
can we separate House Bill 891?
891. 891 will be separate. Any others? If not, on consent calendar 49, but not 891, any discussion? Clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote? Explain their vote. If not, the clerk will take the call. 43 votes in the affirmative. House bills on consent calendar number 49 have received a constitutional majority, are declared passed. All right, clerk, read the next bill.
House Bill 891, Delegate Holmes, Seed Community Development, Anchor Institution Fund alterations.
Recognizing the senator from the 4th District.
Would the floor leader yield on this one?
Floor leader yield, let's see, out of EEE. Senator from the 23rd District.
Yes, Mr. President.
Senator, currently with many of the community revitalization programs that Maryland Department of Housing and Community Development have, they're pretty much open to everybody. In this case, with the Seed Anchor Institution program, it's only open to institutions of higher education and hospitals. But it looked like not only can those institutions apply for it, but now we're opening it up to departments, foundations, and all other entities that may be associated with those institutions. And it what I guess what concerns me is for some larger institutions, maybe like a Hopkins versus a smaller institution, it put smaller institutions at a disadvantage. Was that discussed in the deliberations of the committee, and what was the response?
That was not discussed. But thank you for bringing this up again. We spoke about it. I had expected an amendment from you.
Got you, and it got past me really, really quick. And so, Mr. President, would it be appropriate to special order this till Monday?
Certainly the senator can make the motion. Let's check with the floor leader on the motion.
I don't have a problem with that.
No problems from the committee. Any problems from the floor? Without objection, the bill will be special ordered to the appropriate time on Monday. All right, I think we're going to call it there. I think we've gotten through a lot. We're going to pause there. Let's see. Do we have any? I think we could probably do 11 on Monday. 11 on Monday? 12, let's do 12. Let's do 12. Why not 12?
Might I suggest a pro forma session on Monday?
It's amazing.
You know what would happen? We wouldn't have a capital budget. So all that capital would be, all right. Let's see. Are there any? So if we're going to go in, we'll come to the floor at 12. My guess is that there are going to be a fair number of concurrences. The House is coming in at 9. So we'll have concurrences to take up. So committees probably should check with Chair of Finance.
Thank you, Mr. President. Finance will meet at 11:30 for likely concurrences. So we're coming in at noon, right?
Yep, that's fine.
11:30 should be fine. Thank
Wonderful. All right, 11:30, Tripoli.
Okay, we're going to give ourselves a little more latitude there. How about 11 a.m. for I'm sorry? No, 11 a.m. We got 1 hour. 11 a.m. for Tripoli on Monday.
11 a.m. for Tripoli. Excellent. All right, budget and tax.
11 a.m.
11 a.m. for budget and tax. Judicial proceedings.
11 a.m.
11 a.m. it is. Oh,
Mr.
Finance is
President.
coming back for another bite at the apple.
Finance is going to change to 11 a.m. I'm going to follow the example of my mentors here. Thank you.
11 a.m. All right. Anything from rules or exec noms? Delegations? Caucuses? Yes, Minority Caucus?
the Senate Republican Caucus will joyfully be convening at 10 a.m. on Monday morning in the Senate Caucus office.
10 a.m., all right. Yes, Senator from Baltimore County.
Thank you. Baltimore County delegation, make sure you come in your best, because we're going to take our photo after first floor on Monday.
Excellent. Looking at your best. Yes, Senator from the co-chair of the Protocol Committee.
Yeah, we've got a couple protocol announcements. First announcement is a follow-up. If you haven't seen the panoramic picture, it's in the Speaker's Lounge, or the President's Lounge. Sorry about that, Mr. President. I still slipping, still learning. Orders have to be in, close of business Tuesday. And colleagues, we've been blessed with some super pages. We're not going to call out all their names, but they are here on overtime on their Saturday to help us. So let's give them a big round of applause.
Thank you to the pages. Thank you. They're wonderful.
And then we have one last announcement. We're going to need permission to use the senator's name.
Senator may proceed.
So join me together in joining Senator West and his birthday tomorrow. So let's give him a big birthday wish to Senator West.
Senator, the birthday boy.
I want to make a
Gentlemen.
speech. I just want to say that each year my birthday happens to fall on the same day, and it's always the day before Sunny Die. So it's a good time to celebrate.
Excellent. Very good. Very good. All right. Wonderful. We have everyone's got 1 day off to this, and then you got 9 months off. So let's go ahead. Yeah, right. I wish. Anything else for the good of the order before we break for the day? If not, let's do a quorum call.
Mr. President?
Has everyone recorded their presence? If so, the clerk will take the call. With 43 members in the chamber and a quorum being present, the Senate of Maryland remains in session. Chair recognizes the majority leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move the Senate of Maryland stand adjourned until Monday, April 8th at 12 p.m.
12 p.m. Without objection, so ordered. Have a wonderful weekend.